Chapter 1948. How could it not be ugly? Lian was the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder. He was second only to one person in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Even in the entire four symbols sanctums of Zoroastrianism, he was still considered one of the top figures. However, someone like him was continuously provoked by a new disciple who had just entered the Black Turtle Sanctum and had just joined the Zoroastrianism. At the very least, in Lian's opinion, it was a blatant provocation. In Lian's opinion, this was the greatest insult to him. The first time, the new disciple had killed his best friend's son in front of him. The second time, the new disciple had killed his prospective direct disciple. The third time, the new disciple had killed his grand disciple. How could he tolerate this? This was especially so when he found out his grand disciple had offended Duan Lingtian, because he wanted to avenge him. Lian was completely enraged. Duan Lingtian, how dare you kill Yuan Hong and his younger brother one after another? I'd like to see how you're going to keep your lowly life this time. When Lian arrived at the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, his expression was grave, and his eyes were cold. In his opinion, this time, Duan Lingtian was dead meat. Put aside the fact that Yuan Hong might not have wanted to kill him. Even if he did, he would have killed Yuan Hong out of self-defense. However, what about Yuan Hong's younger brother? Based on the information he had obtained, Yuan Hong's younger brother, Yuan Kuang, did not make a move against Duan Lingtian at all. Duan Lingtian had killed Yuan Kuang for no reason other than killing a fellow disciple. According to the rules of Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian had to pay with his life for Yuan Kuang's. Elder Guoxiong, I don't think you're going to rule that Duan Lingtian is innocent like last time, right? Lian asked after he caught up to Guoxiong. His eyes flashed when he arrived next to Guoxiong. Humph! Guoxiong, who had come because Duan Lingtian had killed the two Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples, had a gloomy expression when he heard Lian's words. Elder Lian, are you questioning the fairness of the ruling I made last time? Since you feel that my previous ruling was unfair, why don't you appeal to the altar master? As he spoke, Guoxiong's voice became colder and colder, causing the surrounding temperature to drop by a few degrees. I just want to remind Elder Guoxiong that some people don't always kill based on reason. Today, even if Duan Lingtian killed Yuan Hong in self-defense, the crime of killing Yuan Kuang is enough for him to be executed. Lian said indifferently. As he spoke, his tone turned cold. Elder Lian, as the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder, I, Guoxiong, know what I'm doing. It's not up to you to tell me what to do. Guoxiong said in a deep voice. From his words, he did not give Lian any face. Lian's expression turned grave when he saw Guoxiong did not give him any face. A hint of killing intent flashed in the depth of his eyes. Following that, Lian's body flashed as he sped up and headed to the residence of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples ahead of Guoxiong. At the residence of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples, more and more Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples walked out of their respective residences. They only had one purpose in coming out, and that was to join in the fun. Due to this reason, it did not take long before the sky above the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples' residences was filled with a few thousand people. At this moment, these people, led by the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder Wu Yi, were surrounding a Secundus house as they discussed among themselves. At this moment, the door of the Secundus house was tightly shut, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. That Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, Duan Lingtian, is so fierce? He still dares to act so arrogantly in front of our Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder Wu Yi after killing Yuan Hong? He even entered Yuan Hong's residence to rest in front of Elder Wu Yi? Duan Lingtian is really rebellious. Does he really think the rules of our Zoroastrianism are dead? No matter what he did, he'll definitely die today. As for his seemingly valiant behavior, perhaps he just wants to indulge himself before he dies. That makes sense. I think he's just going for broke. He's not afraid of anything anymore. The group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples whispered among themselves. They knew Duan Lingtian was going to be executed soon. If it's not for the rule of our Zoroastrianism's four symbol sanctums, which states that the enforcement elders of one of the sanctums are not allowed to punish the disciples of another sanctum. Duan Lingtian wouldn't have survived until now. Can't you see how dark Elder Wu Yi's expression is? He's really angered by Duan Lingtian this time. The Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder should be arriving soon. When the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder arrives, it'll be time for Duan Lingtian to pay with his life for the Yuan brothers. I really want to see if Duan Lingtian can still be so arrogant at that time. As the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples discussed among themselves, the expression of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, Wu Yi, darkened. Although his face was full of fat, one could see that his expression was extremely ugly. One could see how furious he was. Ever since Wu De became the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, this was his first time seeing such an arrogant Zoroastrianism disciple. After killing his fellow disciple, he actually acted as though nothing had happened. He even completely disregarded him, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder. After this matter is over, I'll look for the sanctum leader and ask him to look for the hall master of the Saint Land's enforcement hall to change the rules of the Four Symbols Sanctums. When an outer sanctum's disciple killed someone in the Four Symbols Sanctums, I, the enforcement elder of the Four Symbols Sanctums, can't even uphold justice for the deceased. It's so humiliating to be an enforcement elder like this. Wu Yi muttered to himself. In the end, he felt extremely humiliated. Naturally, it was not as if he had never encountered an outer sanctum's disciple committing a crime in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum before. However, although he could not punish those outer sanctum's disciples, they would still act like a mouse that had seen a cat when they saw him. He enjoyed the feeling of a cat catching a mouse very much. However, today Duan Lingtian had completely disregarded him. Not only did he not enjoy the feeling of a cat catching a mouse, but he also felt extremely humiliated. As the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, he could only watch as an outer sanctum's disciple, who killed his fellow disciple, acted so freely under his nose. However, he could not do anything about it. Humiliating, unbearable, furious. These were the emotions Wu De, the enforcement elder of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, felt at the moment. Junior brother Lingtian. As a Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple, Gu Li naturally stood among the group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples. When he looked at the Secundus house that originally belonged to Yuan Hong, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Although he was confident in Duan Lingtian, he was confident in him. However, based on the current situation, it was extremely disadvantageous for Duan Lingtian. He's Gu Li. Duan Lingtian killed the Yuan brothers because of him? Speaking of which, he's quite a pitiful person. He was always bullied by the Yuan brothers. Now that the Yuan brothers are dead, he can be considered to have escaped from the clutches of the devil. He's fine, but that junior brother Lingtian of his is going to be executed today. When the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder arrives, Duan Lingtian will definitely die. Currently, Gu Li had become the center of attention of many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples. Upon hearing the words of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples, Gu Li became even more worried about Duan Lingtian's safety. No matter how lively it was outside, there was no one in the Secundus house that originally belonged to Yuan Hong. Naturally, it was not completely empty. In an inconspicuous corner, the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda that had shrunk to the size of a speck of dust stood there. Inside the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda, or to be more precise, in the fourth level of the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda, a person was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. How fast? With my current cultivation speed, I'll only need 5 months to make a breakthrough, even if I cultivate in the Secundus house. 5 months in the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda is only half a month in the outside world. In other words, I'll only need half a month in the outside world to successfully break through to the Mastery Divine Saint stage. Duan Lingtian suddenly opened his eyes with a pleasantly surprised expression on his face. He had entered the Secundus house to sense his current cultivation speed. After all, he no longer possessed a green innate spiritual root, but a blue innate spiritual root. Although my blue innate spiritual root is only light blue, with the help of the time flow on the fourth level of the Seven Treasures exquisite pagoda, My current cultivation speed is comparable to a monstrous genius, with a light blue innate spiritual root. Apart from that, even if I cultivate in the Secundus house, with the help of the cultivation environment on the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, my current cultivation environment is comparable to the Primus house. Of course, if I can cultivate in the Primus house, my cultivation speed will also be improved further. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he could not help but feel excited. It's almost time. Elder Guoxiong should be here soon, right? When Duan Lingtian thought of this, he immediately left the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and put it away. Then, he sat cross-legged on the wooden bed in the Secundus house and closed his eyes to rest. At the same time, outside the Secundus house, a figure moved swiftly and arrived next to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement Elder Wuda in just a blink of an eye. Elder Wuda. The person greeted Wuda. Elder Lian. In the face of the greeting, Wood also responded, but he didn't show any flattery. He was the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder. His strength was in no way inferior to the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong. Even if he was not as strong as Lian, he was not too far off. For this reason, he was very casual even when he was facing Lian, its elder Lian. The Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame elder, Lian? Lian's appearance instantly attracted the attention of many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples. What about Duan Lingtian? Chapter 1949. When Wu Yi heard Lian's question, if he did not know about the conflict between Lian and Duan Lingtian, he would have cursed out loud. Were all the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples so arrogant? How dare he disregard him, the enforcement elder of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's territory? He's in the Secundus house that originally belonged to Yuan Hong. He said he'll come out when the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong arrives. When Wu Yi reached the end of his sentence, his eyes narrowed coldly. His fat face was contorted, showing just how angry he was at this moment. What? Upon hearing Wu Yi's words, Lian's expression changed drastically. He shouted angrily, "Who does he think he is? He's just a sinner who has violated the sect's rules. How dare he be so presumptuous?" As soon as Lian finished speaking, before Wu Yi and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples present on the scene could react, he had already made his move at lightning speed. Boom! Lian casually raised his hand and slapped forward. A vast and nearly invisible energy instantly transformed into a palm print. The palm print tore through the air and caused a loud bang as it ruthlessly landed on the second-class house in front of him. Rumble! As a series of earth-shattering explosions reverberated in the air, the Secundus house suddenly collapsed and turned into ruins. Smoke and dust filled the air. From afar, one could feel chills running up one's spine. How ruthless! Upon seeing this, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples present on the scene shuddered. They did not expect the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame elder Lian to be so ruthless. He destroyed the Secundus house in just one move. Elder Lian. Upon seeing this, Wu Yi's expression turned grave as he glared at Lian angrily. Whether it was Lian destroying the Secundus house in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples' residence, or abusing his authority, he was displeased. Although he was displeased by Duan Lingtian's actions, he did not think of abusing his authority. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for a mere Duan Lingtian to survive in his hands. As the law-enforcing elder of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, Wu Yi was just like any other person. He would get angry because of all kinds of unpleasant things, but he had his own principles. In Zoroastrianism, everything was done according to the rules. This was Wu Yi's principle. "Don't worry, I didn't kill him," Lian said calmly. Although he wanted to tear Duan Lingtian into pieces, he was not so impulsive as to kill Duan Lingtian in front of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder. He made a move because he didn't want to make things too easy for Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, the reason why Duan Lingtian dared to be so arrogant was definitely because he knew that he was going to die, so he wanted to be complacent and enjoy himself before he died. Duan Lingtian wanted to enjoy it, but he wouldn't let him. "Don't you like to rest? Let's see how you're going to rest after I destroy the house." Lian. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the ruins shook a few times, and then an angry and cold voice came out. Boom. Following that, another loud sound reverberated in the air as the ruins exploded. A person rose up into the air. It was none other than Duan Lingtian, who had a grave expression on his face. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was covered in dust since he had just come out from the ruins. Duan Lingtian, how dare you call me by my name when you see me? Do you know that you've violated the Zoroastrianism's rule of not respecting your elders? Lian said coldly. A hint of satisfaction could be seen in his eyes when he saw Duan Lingtian's wretched state. Based on his words, he was directly saying Duan Lingtian did not respect his elders. Humph. Upon hearing Lian's words, Duan Lingtian could not help but snort coldly. He retorted, if I'm not mistaken, there's also a rule in Zoroastrianism that the elders in the sect are not allowed to bully the weak. You've already put aside your pride to bully the weak, and you still want me to respect you? Is there something wrong with your head? Or are you an idiot to begin with? Duan Lingtian had been suppressing the anger in his heart for a long time when Lian destroyed his room. Now that he heard Lian say that he did not respect his elders, he could not hold it in any longer and exploded. He did not respect his elders and bullied the weak. How could he still have the cheek to say he did not respect his elders? Ridiculous. Extremely ridiculous. When Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he felt much better. However, while his anger was appeased, Lian's anger was not. Idiot. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the entire place fell silent. Then, all eyes shifted to Duan Lingtian, causing him to become the center of attention. These gazes came from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples who were present. Their gazes were filled with shock, disbelief, admiration, and surprise. All in all, when Duan Lingtian said the word idiot to Lian, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples present on the scene had different thoughts. Some of them thought Duan Lingtian was seeking death. Some of them thought Duan Lingtian was going all out. Since he knew he was going to die, he wanted to enjoy himself before he was executed. There were also some people who admired Duan Lingtian. They did not know why Duan Lingtian dared to act so boldly. Duan Lingtian, you're seeking death. When Lian looked at Duan Lingtian again, an awe-inspiring killing intent rose from his body, and his eyes flickered with a cold light. At this moment, he felt as though his lungs were about to explode because of Duan Lingtian. Ever since he became a Zoroastrianism's elder, who else would dare to call him an idiot in front of him? Duan Lingtian, an ordinary Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple who only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, actually dared to call him an idiot. This made him feel as though he had swallowed a fly. What? Elder Lian, are you angry now? Duan Lingtian was amused when he saw how angry Lian was. He said nonchalantly, I don't think I've said anything wrong. Why don't we ask Elder Wu Yi to be the judge of this? As the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, I'm sure he knows the rules of Zoroastrianism better than both of us. Why don't we ask him to tell us who provoked who first today? Who's at fault? Lian was rendered speechless when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. He felt as though his lungs were about to explode. After all, he was the one who instigated the conflict between him and Duan Lingtian. If you respect me, I'll respect you tenfold. When Duan Lingtian saw that Lian did not reply, he continued to say, I, Duan Lingtian, always have a clear conscience. Naturally, now that I'm in Zoroastrianism, I'll definitely abide by the rules of Zoroastrianism. Duan Lingtian's first sentence was still acceptable. Many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples secretly gave him a thumbs up. As for the last sentence, it made everyone's expression become a little strange. Duan Lingtian said he would abide by the rules of Zoroastrianism? What a joke! Could it be that he did not violate the rules of Zoroastrianism when he killed Yuan Hong and Yuan Kuang earlier? Was he abiding by the rules of Zoroastrianism? Due to Duan Lingtian's actions earlier, the people present on the scene scoffed at his second sentence. Duan Lingtian is too shameless. How can he say something like that? That's right. If he abides by the rules of Zoroastrianism, he wouldn't have killed Yuan Hong and Yuan Kuang. It's still fine if it's Yuan Hong, since he killed them out of self-defense. However, what about Yuan Kuang? From the beginning until the end, Yuan Kuang did not even make a move against him. However, he still killed Yuan Kuang. It's fine if other people say this, but Duan Lingtian is the most ridiculous person in the world when he said this. Based on his actions, it seems like he's just venting his emotions. It seems like he's also aware that he's running out of time. Since the Black Turtle Sanctum's Elder Lian is here, I'm afraid the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong will be here soon. Most of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples glanced at Duan Lingtian before they shook their heads. They felt that Duan Lingtian did not have much time left, so he was being so self-indulgent. Humph. I can't be bothered to argue with you. After all, no matter what, you'll definitely die today. Lian snorted coldly as though he knew he was no match for Duan Lingtian. He no longer said anything to Duan Lingtian. Instead, he stood quietly at the side with his eyes closed as he waited for the arrival of the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong. When Duan Lingtian saw Lian had fallen silent, he no longer continued to speak. He retracted his cold gaze from Lian. Soon after, the scene became quiet again. Everyone was waiting for the arrival of the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong. After a few breaths, whoosh, a soft voice was transmitted into the ears of everyone present, causing them to raise their heads and look into the distance. They saw an old figure flying toward them at an extremely fast speed. Soon after, the figure landed next to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Wu Yi. It was a person wearing the Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder's uniform. It's the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder, Elder Guoxiong? The group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples immediately shifted their attention to the newcomer. Elder Guoxiong. Duan Lingtian looked at the newcomer and narrowed his eyes. He was not afraid at all. In fact, in the Four Symbols Sanctums of Zoroastrianism, as a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, Guoxiong, the Enforcement Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum, had the right to sentence him to death based on the severity of his crime. Elder Guoxiong. When Wu Yi saw Guoxiong, his eyes lit up as though he had seen his savior. Elder Guoxiong, you came at the right time. Now, you can make your decision and sentence Duan Lingtian to pay with his life for the Yuan brothers. Lian said to Guoxiong directly. Based on his words, it was as though he was giving an order. He really wanted to see Duan Lingtian sentenced to death, so he did not realize he had overstepped his boundaries. When Wu Yi heard Lian's words, he could not help but frown even though he was not involved. As the person involved, Guoxiong's expression darkened immediately. He said rudely to Lian, Elder Lian, it's not up to you to tell me what to do. Chapter 1950. This was not Lian's first time being treated so rudely by Guoxiong. Please search for the most complete. Damn. However, being humiliated by Guoxiong in front of so many people, he couldn't help but feel a burst of anger in his heart. Although he was furious, he did not show it on his face. At the very least, it was not appropriate for him to show it at this moment. Who knew if Guoxiong would rule in Duan Lingtian's favor if he fell out with Guoxiong? Although according to the Zoroastrianism's rules, anyone with a discerning eye could see that Duan Lingtian would definitely be killed. Who knew if Guoxiong, the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder, would side with him? In order to witness Duan Lingtian's death, he chose to endure it for now. Based on this, one could see how much he wanted Duan Lingtian to be killed. Duan Lingtian. After Guoxiong retracted his gaze from Lian, he immediately shifted his gaze to Duan Lingtian. His eyes gleamed coldly as he asked in a deep voice, I heard you killed 2 Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples? When Guoxiong asked Duan Lingtian, everyone's eyes instantly shifted to Duan Lingtian. Yes, under everyone's watchful eyes, Duan Lingtian replied without hesitation. Why? Guoxiong asked again. Although everything was going according to procedure, his voice gradually turned colder. Yuan Hong wanted to kill me, so I killed him out of self-defense. Duan Lingtian said in a timely manner. As for Yuan Kuang, although he didn't make a move on me, he threatened my friend's life in an attempt to interfere with my fight with Yuan Hong. In my opinion, he's an accomplice of Yuan Hong. Both of them wanted to kill me, so I killed him out of self-defense as well. His words were said fluently, as though he had rehearsed it countless times. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the entire place fell silent again. The Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples looked at each other. They could see the confusion in each other's eyes. After a while, many people began to whisper among themselves, "Isn't Duan Lingtian a little too shameless?" Indeed, he's shameless. It can be said that he killed Yuan Hong out of self-defense. However, Yuan Kuang did not make a move on him at all. And he actually found such an excuse to say he killed Yuan Kuang out of self-defense. What a joke. Does he really think the enforcement elders from the Black Turtle Sanctum are so easily deceived? Do you think they believe everything he says? In my opinion, not only does he think the Black Turtle Sanctum's Duan Lingtian, but he also thinks our Vermilion Bird. In the beginning, the group, the Vermilion Bird Sanctums, the Vermilion Vermildly the Vermilion as well. When the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong heard the words of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples, his expression turned grave immediately. Elder Duan Lingtian, don't listen to Duan Lingtian's nonsense. I've already investigated what happened today. It's true that Yuan Hong launched a sneak attack on him, but I can't be sure if he intended to kill him or not. At the same time, Wu Yi, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, looked at Duan Lingtian and said, "Let's just assume that Yuan Hong tried to kill Duan Lingtian and was killed by him out of self-defense. However, based on my investigation, Yuan Kuang did not threaten his friend's life. It's not difficult to verify this. We can ask his friend to swear on the lightning penalty oath, and the truth will be revealed. I believe he can confirm if Yuan Kuang threatened his friend's life to interfere with Duan Lingtian." When Wu Yi reached the end of his sentence, he shifted his gaze to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples nearby and found Gu Li. When Gu Li heard Wu Yi's words and saw Wu Yi looking at him, horror dawned on him. He was not afraid of death. If he could exchange his life for his junior brother Ling Tian's safety, he would be more than happy to do so. However, if he swore on the lightning penalty oath according to Wu Yi's words, not only would he die from the lightning penalty, but he would also implicate his junior brother Ling Tian. At that time, everyone would be able to confirm that Duan Lingtian did not kill Yuan Kuang out of self-defense. According to the Zoroastrianism's rule, killing a fellow disciple for no reason was a capital offense. Elder Wu Yi, there's no need for that. When Duan Lingtian saw everyone, including the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong, had shifted their attention to Gu Li, he quickly interjected. As soon as he spoke, he stopped Wu Yi. "What? Do you admit that you killed your fellow disciple?" Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Wu Yi shifted his gaze from Gu Li to Duan Lingtian and smirked coldly. Lian stood at the side and looked at Duan Lingtian coldly. A cruel smile appeared on his face. It was as though he could already see Duan Lingtian being executed. "Elder Wu Yi, I didn't admit to it." Duan Lingtian shook his head. "Duan Lingtian, if you don't admit to it, just ask your friend to do as Elder Wu Yi said. At that time, the truth will be revealed." At this moment, Guoxiong was furious. "Elder Guoxiong, there's no need to rush." Duan Lingtian shook his head again, before he transmitted his voice to Guoxiong. This sentence caused Guoxiong's eyes to widen in shock. An expression of disbelief appeared on his face. However, at the same time, a hint of suspicion could be seen on Guoxiong's face. In the end, he turned to look at the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder Wu Yi, and transmitted his voice to Wu Yi. Immediately, Wu Yi's face was filled with shock and disbelief. At the same time, he also revealed a somewhat suspicious expression. Just when everyone, including Lian, noticed that there was something wrong with the two law-enforcing elders' expressions, Li An's expression changed. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The air rippled as a wave of scorching and vast flame energy surged out from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder Wu Yi's body. In the end, it consolidated into a flame territory. The flame territory was like a gigantic beast that swallowed Wu Yi, Guoxiong, and Duan Lingtian. In just a blink of an eye, only a huge fireball with a diameter of 100 meters was left in front of everyone's eyes. The huge fireball continued to burn as it hovered in the air, blocking everyone's sight. "What's Wu Yi doing?" Lian could not help but frown when he saw this. Even if they wanted to execute Duan Lingtian, according to the rules, they would have to make a verbal judgment first, right? For some reason, an ominous feeling rose in Lian's heart. Moreover, this feeling grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, Lian even wanted to barge into Wu Yi's flame territory to see what he and Guoxiong were up to. However, in the end he resisted the urge. Naturally, he could do that. However, the consequences were not something he could bear. At that time, as long as Wu Yi and Guoxiong reported him to the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall, he would not be able to get away scot-free, even if he was the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder. As the enforcement elders of the Four Symbols Sanctums, Wu Yi and Guoxiong were directly under the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall. What are Elder Wu Yi and Elder Guoxiong doing? Are they going to execute Duan Lingtian? Even if they want to execute Duan Lingtian, according to the rules, they would have to make a verbal judgment first, right? Perhaps, Duan Lingtian's shamelessness has angered the two enforcement elders. Due to this reason, they no longer intend to execute Duan Lingtian verbally. That's possible. As the group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples discussed among themselves, more than 90% of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples thought the same thing. Wu Yi had cast the flame territory to block their sight, because he wanted to execute Duan Lingtian. Even Gu Li felt the same way. At this moment, Gu Li's face turned pale immediately. He clenched his fists tightly as his body began to tremble uncontrollably. At this moment, he hated himself to the core. He hated himself for being too weak. He could not help Duan Lingtian at all. The appearance of the flame territory immediately separated the two worlds. Most of the people outside the flame territory thought Duan Lingtian was going to be executed. However, inside the flame territory, Duan Lingtian was in peace with the two enforcement elders. Whoosh! Whoosh! Guoxiong and Wu Yi took out a transparent spiritual pearl at the same time. It was the spiritual pearl that was used to test one's innate spiritual root. Wu Yi had cast the flame territory to block the sight of the people outside for this very moment. Duan Lingtian, if you dare to deceive me and Elder Guoxiong, I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to wish for death, even if I have to execute you. Wu Yi threatened in a deep voice as he passed the spiritual pearl to Duan Lingtian. His eyes were cold as he passed the spiritual pearl to Duan Lingtian. Although Guoxiong did not say anything, the piercing look in his eyes when he looked at Duan Lingtian explained everything. The facts will prove everything. After receiving the spiritual pearls from the two enforcement elders, Duan Lingtian held one spiritual pearl in each hand with a flip of his palm as he waited quietly. Normally, the spiritual pearls would only react after the span of 10 breaths. Earlier, Duan Lingtian had told Guoxiong a piece of important news through voice transmission. He possessed a blue innate spiritual root. As the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder, Guoxiong did not have any dealings with Duan Lingtian before this. However, due to Gu Long's death 10 days ago, he had come across Duan Lingtian again. It was precisely because of that encounter that he learned some things about Duan Lingtian. This included the fact that Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. At that time, Guoxiong was puzzled. Where did a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, who only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, find the courage to go against the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder? However, today, Duan Lingtian had told Guoxiong through voice transmission again. His innate spiritual root is not a yellow innate spiritual root, but a blue innate spiritual root. In Zoroastrianism, martial geniuses with blue innate spiritual roots would usually be given special treatment. They would even be allowed to do things that ordinary disciples would not be able to do. That included killing fellow disciples of the same sect. Why did Gu Long dare to kill Duan Lingtian 10 days ago? It was all because he thought Duan Lingtian was a martial genius with a blue innate spiritual root. The Zoroastrianism that valued talents would not kill him. Chapter 1951. Finally, the span of 10 breaths had passed. The two spiritual pearls in Duan Lingtian's hands began to shine with a green light, as though they were telling the people around them something. It's really a blue innate spiritual root. Wu Yi's eyes widened immediately. Before this, he did not believe Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root. This was because the Black Turtle Sanctum had informed him that Duan Lingtian possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. However, he had no choice but to believe it when he saw this blue innate spiritual root. Guoxiong was momentarily stunned when he saw the reaction of the two spiritual pearls in Duan Lingtian's hands. When he regained his senses, he cursed the two Black Turtle Sanctum's bronze flame elders, who tested Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root. How could they turn a martial genius with a blue innate spiritual root into a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root? Not only was this a trap, but it was also pushing a martial genius out of Zoroastrianism. Duan Lingtian, why don't you acknowledge me as your master and come to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum? When Wu Yi looked at Duan Lingtian again, he narrowed his small eyes that shone with hope. The fat on his face relaxed as he revealed a smile that he thought was gentle. At this moment, he seemed to have forgotten about the conflict between him and Duan Lingtian. He wanted Duan Lingtian to acknowledge him as his master as soon as he opened his mouth. In the fire worship sect, a martial genius with a blue innate spiritual root would always be fought over by the Silver Flame Elders to be their disciple. As a Silver Flame Elder in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, Wu Yi was naturally no exception. There's nothing good for you in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Moreover, you've already offended that vengeful Lian. If you continue to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, you'll only bring trouble to yourself. If you're willing to acknowledge me as your master, I'll immediately ask the Sanctum Leader of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum to negotiate with the Sanctum Leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum and ask for you. When Wu Yi reached the end of his sentence, a hint of urgency could be heard in his voice. Bullshit. When Duan Lingtian was put in a spot and was about to refuse, Guoxiong immediately looked at Wu Yi and scolded him. Duan Lingtian is a martial Dao genius in our Black Turtle Sanctum. How dare you try to poach him in front of me? Do you really think I'm dead? Guoxiong, you can't say that. Wu Yi was a little unhappy when he heard Guoxiong's words. He said with a straight face, who in the Four Symbols Sanctums does not know about Duan Lingtian's current situation in your Black Turtle Sanctum? If Duan Lingtian continues to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, who knows when Lian will kill him? It's not like you don't know what Lian is capable of. He's a guy who will do anything to achieve his goals. In the past, in his eyes, Duan Lingtian is just a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root. It's fine for him to deal with him slowly. However, if he finds out that Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root, he'll definitely do whatever it takes to kill Duan Lingtian. This was one of the reasons Guoxiong had consolidated his flame territory to block the view of the people outside. If Lian found out that Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root, this martial Dao genius would most likely be killed by him. For this reason, I think it's best for Duan Lingtian to come to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. It's too dangerous for him to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. After all, Lian will find out about his blue innate spiritual root sooner or later. Wu Yi finished speaking in one breath. Guoxiong's expression changed when he heard Wu Yi's words. Elder Guoxiong, I know you want to take Duan Lingtian as your direct disciple. However, you didn't say anything, because you don't think you'll be able to protect Duan Lingtian. Just let him go, and let Duan Lingtian come to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. Lian won't dare to act recklessly in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, Wu Yi advised. Humph, Guoxiong snorted. Although I don't think I'll be able to protect Duan Lingtian, there might be someone in the Black Turtle Sanctum who can protect him. You. Wu Yi narrowed his eyes when he heard Lian's words. He asked in shock. You're going to recommend Duan Lingtian to the Sanctum Leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum? That's right. Guoxiong nodded. Elder Guoxiong. Wu Yi was instantly anxious when he saw Guoxiong nodding in all seriousness, as he didn't want a duck that was already cooked to fly away. Out of consideration for my age, and the fact that I don't have a proper personal disciple, give Duan Lingtian to me. I, Wu Yi, will surely remember this favor of yours. I'll definitely remember it. Duan Lingtian, who was standing at the side, was speechless when he saw this. From the beginning until the end, Wu Yi did not seem to ask for his opinion at all. Guo Xiong, who was annoyed by Wu Yi, saw Duan Lingtian's speechless expression from the corner of his eyes. His eyes lit up immediately as he said, "Elder Wu Yi, what's the point of telling me so much? If Duan Lingtian doesn't want to stay in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, are you going to tie him up here? In my opinion, you should ask for his opinion first before you try to persuade me. You're putting the cart before the horse." Guo Xiong immediately tossed Wu Yi this trouble to Duan Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian saw Wu Yi looking at him, he immediately expressed his stance and said apologetically, "Elder Wu Yi, I'm sorry. I'd like to stay in the Black Turtle's Sanctum to comprehend the Black Turtle's Barrier." The Black Turtle's Barrier. The Black Turtle's Barrier was the only reason he wanted to stay in the Black Turtle's Sanctum. Currently, he only lacked a high-grade defensive divine ability. As the number 1 defensive divine ability in Zoroastrianism, the Black Turtle's Barrier was undoubtedly the most suitable defensive divine ability in Zoroastrianism for him. I forgot that, Duan Lingtian. You're also very talented in mastering divine abilities. Currently, you've already mastered 3 high-grade divine abilities. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Guo Xiong spoke before Wu Yi could reply. Then, he looked at Wu Yi and said with a smile, "Elder Wu Yi, if I'm not mistaken, the divine ability in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum is not as powerful as the high-grade movement divine ability that Duan Lingtian has mastered. For this reason, you should just give up. Duan Lingtian won't stay in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum." Wu Yi's chubby face was a little stiff. When his eyes met Duan Lingtian's determined gaze, he sighed. Forget it, forget it." In the end, Wu Yi waved his hand helplessly like a deflated balloon. It was as though he had suddenly aged a few decades. "Elder Wu Yi, the most important thing right now is to deal with Duan Lingtian," Guo Xiong suddenly said to Wu Yi with a solemn expression. Upon hearing this, Wu Yi shuddered and regained his senses. His expression turned solemn as well. Since Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root, according to the unspoken rules of Zoroastrianism, it's not a big deal for him to commit such a small mistake. However, we still need to punish him on the surface. Otherwise, we won't be able to convince the others. Wu Yi and Guo Xiong looked at each other and quickly reached a consensus. Unspoken rules? Upon hearing Wu Yi's words, Duan Lingtian's lips twitched subtly. Although Duan Lingtian knew the fire worship sect would not exchange his life for the lives of the Yuan brothers after he revealed his blue innate spiritual root, he was certain the fire worship sect would not allow him to kill the Yuan brothers. However, he did not know this was known as the unspoken rules in Zoroastrianism. Outside the flame territory, as time passed by, the uneasiness in Li An's heart grew stronger, and his expression turned grave. It's not over yet. Why do I feel this is strange? If the 2 enforcement elders want to kill Duan Lingtian, it shouldn't take them so long. Could it be that something has happened? Something has happened? What could have happened? Many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples also noticed something was amiss. However, they could not tell what it was. Junior brother Lingtian. A glimmer of hope could be seen in the depth of Gu Li's eyes. Whoosh! Finally, under the watchful eyes of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, Wu Yi withdrew the flame territory that was blocking everyone's sight. After the flame territory was withdrawn, 3 figures appeared before everyone's eyes. When the group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples saw Duan Lingtian, who they thought had been executed, standing there, as though nothing had happened, they were dumbfounded. Could it be that the 2 enforcement elders did not execute Duan Lingtian after such a long time had passed? Since they did not execute Duan Lingtian, what were they doing earlier? Many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples were filled with doubts. Elder Wu Yi, Elder Guo Xiong, what were both of you doing earlier? Li An's eyes gleamed brightly as he looked at the 2 enforcement elders and asked in a deep voice. However, even though his voice wasn't soft, regardless of whether it was Wu Yi or Guo Xiong, they completely ignored him, causing Li An's expression to become extremely ugly. Junior brother Lingtian, you? At the same time, Gu Li could not help but send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. He could not see through what was happening. Senior brother Gu Li, you just have to watch carefully. Duan Lingtian interrupted Gu Li's voice transmission. His tone was calm, giving off a sense of security. Upon hearing this, Gu Li nodded inwardly. At the same time, he immediately looked at the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement Elder Guoxiong. Today, Elder Guoxiong would be the one to make the decision regarding Duan Lingtian. Cough cough. However, when everyone's attention was on Guoxiong, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement Elder Wuyi cleared his throat. After successfully attracting everyone's attention, Wuyi said in a clear voice, "I've repeatedly confirmed that Duan Lingtian killed the Yuan brothers out of self-defense." Killing the Yuan brothers out of self-defense? Gu Li was dumbfounded. The group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples was dumbfounded as well. However, he still killed Yuan Kuang even though he knew he could have held back. That's not a good thing. Now, Elder Guoxiong will make the final decision regarding Duan Lingtian's crime. Wuyi continued to say. When Lian heard the first half of Wu Yi's sentence, his expression had already turned grave. He completely ignored the second half of Wu Yi's sentence. The ominous feeling had finally come true. Chapter 1952. The Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, Duan Lingtian, killed the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Yuan Hong and Yuan Kuang. Although there is a reason behind it, and it was self-defense, he was too reckless in killing Yuan Kuang. For this reason, I've reached a consensus with the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's enforcement elder, Elder Wu Yi, and we've decided to send him to the first mine of the four symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism, to serve for 10 years and 3 months. Under the watchful eyes of the others, the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder, Guoxiong, made a ruling against Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian would be sent to the first mine of the four symbol sanctums, to serve for 10 years and 3 months. The moment Guoxiong's words left his mouth, the entire place fell silent. Apart from Guoxiong and Wu Yi who had a calm expression on their faces, Duan Lingtian was the only one who remained calm. He was not surprised by the ruling at all. It was as though he had long known about it. As for the others, including Lian and Gu Li, they were stunned by the ruling. Elder Guoxiong. Lian was the first to regain his senses. He looked at Guoxiong with a grave expression as he said in a low voice, Duan Lingtian. You can say that Duan Lingtian killed Yuan Hong out of self-defense. But how can you say that he killed Yuan Kuang out of self-defense? Don't you think it's a little arbitrary for you to make such a rash ruling? Lian questioned Guoxiong as soon as he spoke. Guoxiong's expression turned grave immediately. He glanced at Lian coldly. Elder Lian, this ruling is a unanimous decision made by Elder Wu Yi and I. If you have any objections, you can go to the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall in a few days' time to express your opinion. At that time, the ruling I've made today will be recorded in the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall's files. You're not qualified to interfere with my ruling. When Guoxiong reached the end of his sentence, his tone was unfriendly. There was even a hint of mockery in his tone. It was because of Lian that he could not accept Duan Lingtian as his disciple. Although he was not much weaker than Lian, he was still weak. In addition, Lian's foundation in Zoroastrianism was stronger than his. If Duan Lingtian became his disciple, he might not be able to protect Duan Lingtian. For this reason, in order not to destroy Duan Lingtian, he planned to recommend Duan Lingtian to the sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum. As long as Duan Lingtian became the direct disciple of the sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum, even if Lian wanted to lay his hands on Duan Lingtian, he would have to think twice before making a move on him. The sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum was a Golden Flame Elder. He was one of the strongest elders in Zoroastrianism. Hearing Guoxiong's words, Lian was instantly enraged. He stared at Guoxiong with an ominous glint in his eyes, as his body trembled violently due to his anger. However, Guoxiong completely ignored him. He was not worried Lian would make a move on him. If Lian dared to make a move on him, he was confident he would send Lian to the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall. Even if Lian did not die, he would at least be skinned alive. Elder Wu Yi, do you agree with Elder Guoxiong's decision as well? Lian asked as he took a deep breath to suppress the raging anger in his heart. He shifted his gaze from Guoxiong to Wu Yi. Didn't Elder Guoxiong say it already? This is a unanimous decision made by me and him. Wu Yi said impatiently when faced with Li An's question. Good. Good. Very good. In a few days, when all of you file today's decision into the St. Lands Enforcement Hall's case file, I'll personally go to the Enforcement Hall to protest the decision that all of you have made today. After Lian obtained Wu Yi's confirmation, he was so angry that his face was distorted. Then, Lian glanced at Wu Yi and Guoxiong coldly, before he shifted his gaze to Duan Lingtian. He said coldly, Duan Lingtian, although I don't know what method you used to make Wu Yi and Guoxiong favor you. However, I want to tell you that the two of them are not the only ones in the Zoroastrianism's Enforcement Hall. When they send today's decision to the Enforcement Hall and file it into the Enforcement Hall's case file, I'll immediately rush to the Enforcement Hall to overturn the decision that they made today. At that time, the Enforcement Hall will send another St. Lands Enforcement Elder to make a new decision on you. You won't be able to live for long. When Lian reached the end of his sentence, he looked at Duan Lingtian, as though he was looking at a dead man. Facing Lian's cold shout, Duan Lingtian didn't even look at Lian from the beginning until the end. As soon as Lian finished speaking, he opened his mouth and spat out 2 words unhurriedly. Idiot! Idiot! Duan Lingtian's words stunned the group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples present on the scene. Isn't this Duan Lingtian too valiant? He actually dared to call Lian an idiot? Duan Lingtian, you're seeking death. Lian was already furious. When he heard Duan Lingtian calling him an idiot, he was instantly enraged. He wanted to seize this opportunity to attack Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, even if he could not kill Duan Lingtian today, he wanted to teach Duan Lingtian a lesson. Elder Lian, don't tell me you thought I was referring to you when I called you an idiot? That's a huge misunderstanding. Moreover, I didn't call you that earlier, did I? Or perhaps, Elder Lian, you've always had such a nickname? Duan Lingtian said solemnly as he looked at Lian, who was about to make a move. Duan Lingtian's serious appearance angered Lian to the point that he wished for nothing more than to tear Duan Lingtian into pieces. However, he knew he could not touch Duan Lingtian today. This was because as soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he noticed Guoxiong and Wu Yi were staring at him. It was as though they were saying, if you dare to touch Duan Lingtian, we'll attack you together. Duan Lingtian, you won't be so smug for long. Lian glared at Duan Lingtian coldly, before he left in a huff without waiting for Duan Lingtian's reply. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes as he stared at Lian's departing figure. A cold gleam flashed in the depths of his eyes. If he had the chance, he would not let Lian continue to live in this world. Lian's existence was still a hidden danger to him. What's going on? Duan Lingtian killed 2 of our Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples. And this is the only punishment he receives. Isn't this too ridiculous? Moreover, what happened after Elder Wu Yi consolidated his flame territory and shrouded him? Elder Guoxiong and Duan Lingtian. Why is there such a huge change in the situation? That's right. Before that, Elder Guoxiong and Elder Wu Yi were very aggressive when they faced Duan Lingtian. However, after they came out of the flame territory, they stood on Duan Lingtian's side and tried their best to protect him. Moreover, they even gave Duan Lingtian an excuse to punish Duan Lingtian. The turning point must be in the flame territory. Unfortunately, we don't know what happened when they were in there. The group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples whispered among themselves. Their words were filled with confusion. They had seen the changes in Guoxiong, the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder, and Wu Yi, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Enforcement Elder, before they entered the flame territory. Due to this reason, they were puzzled. This was because the changes in their attitudes were too great. From wanting to punish Duan Lingtian to protecting Duan Lingtian, it only took a blink of an eye for them to accept it. However, they were certain something must have happened. Otherwise, the 2 enforcement elders would not have such a huge change in attitude toward Duan Lingtian. Now that the punishment for Duan Lingtian had been decided, Guoxiong and Wu Yi left one after another. Duan Lingtian, can you tell us why the 2 enforcement elders' attitudes toward you changed so much after they entered the flame territory? Many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples were curious. Some of them even asked Duan Lingtian directly. If you want to know, why don't you ask Elder Wu Yi? Duan Lingtian smiled faintly and used Wu Yi as a shield when faced with these people's questions. After a while, a few Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples did not manage to get any answers from Duan Lingtian. They gave up on the idea of finding a breakthrough from Duan Lingtian. Junior brother Lingtian, what's going on? After the group of Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples left, Guli finally had time to be alone with Duan Lingtian. When they were alone, he could not help but send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. The Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples were not the only ones who were confused. Even Guli was puzzled. Actually, it's nothing much. I just proved my value to them. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly and replied through voice transmission. What value? Guli became even more curious when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. My innate spiritual root is a blue innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian said with a faint smile on his face. There was nothing to hide in front of Guli. Blue innate spiritual root? Guli narrowed his eyes when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. An expression of disbelief appeared on his face. What's going on? Isn't your innate spiritual root a yellow innate spiritual root? The news of Duan Lingtian possessing a yellow innate spiritual root had long spread in the Four Symbols Sanctums. Naturally, Guli had also heard about it. However, Duan Lingtian had just said his innate spiritual root was a blue innate spiritual root. Guli was dumbfounded. He was completely dumbfounded. I can't believe junior brother Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root. However, only such an innate spiritual root is worthy of your martial Tao innate spiritual root. After a while, Guli regained his senses. He thought the news from the Black Turtle Sanctum was fake, so he did not dwell on it. Senior brother Guli, your innate spiritual root must be quite good as well, right? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. It's much worse than yours. My innate spiritual root is only a green innate spiritual root. Guli replied. Green innate spiritual root? That's not bad. Chapter 1953. In the Zoroastrianism, those who possess a green innate spiritual root can at least become a bronze flame elder in the future. With the innate talent you've displayed in the past, it's not impossible for you to become a silver flame elder in the Zoroastrianism in the future. Duan Lingtian added. Junior brother Lingtian. However, when Guli heard Duan Lingtian's words, he did not agree. Instead, his expression turned grave. What's wrong? When Duan Lingtian saw the grave expression on Guli's face, his heart skipped a beat. His expression turned grave as well. Junior brother Lingtian, I'd like to leave the Zoroastrianism temporarily. I have some matters to attend to, Guli said after taking a deep breath. What matters? Duan Lingtian asked, puzzled. It's not convenient for me to tell you now, but this matter is very important to me. Originally, I planned to bid farewell to you and leave as soon as I saw you. However, the Yuan brothers kept a close eye on me, so I didn't have the chance to go to the Black Turtle Sanctum to look for you. Guli said. Today you came and killed the Yuan brothers to avenge me. For this reason, I think it's time for me to leave. Senior brother Guli, no matter what you're going to do, I'll support you. Since Guli said it was not convenient for him to say, Duan Lingtian did not ask any further. After all, everyone had their own secrets. How could he not hold back in front of Guli? When Guli heard Duan Lingtian's words, a smile appeared on his face. However, senior brother Guli, if you want to leave, it's best if you leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, whether it's our Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder Lian, or the Northern Plethora Sect's fifth Elder Yang Chong, they'll definitely target you. Duan Lingtian said solemnly. I think so too. Guli nodded. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said to Duan Lingtian, Junior brother Lingtian, please send my regards to Hall Master Zhu. All right. Duan Lingtian immediately agreed. After that, Duan Lingtian escorted Guli all the way to the north of the Vermilion Bird altar before stopping. If they continued forward, they would be considered to have left the Vermilion Bird altar. Senior brother Guli, take care. Duan Lingtian said to Guli. Junior brother Lingtian, you have to be careful in Zoroastrianism. I'll come back to help you when I'm done with my business. Perhaps at that time, I will be able to help you a little, and not be like a trash like I am now. Guli nodded and laughed at himself when he reached the end of his sentence. Senior brother Guli, what do you mean by that? No matter what, you're still Duan Lingtian's senior brother. This is a fact that can never be changed, Duan Lingtian said solemnly. Under Duan Lingtian's gaze, Guli finally left. Duan Lingtian only regained his senses when Guli's silhouette disappeared from his sight. He immediately left the vermilion bird altar and returned to the black turtle altar. What he wanted to do the most was to return and cultivate. Currently, he possessed a blue innate spiritual root. His cultivation speed was more than 2 times faster than before. I'll be able to break through to the Mastery Divine Saint stage in 2 weeks at most. If I'm given another month, it won't be a problem for me to break through to the peak of the Divine Saint stage. 3 months later, when I go to the 4 Symbols Sanctum's first mine to serve my sentence, my cultivation base will most likely break through to the Exemplary Saint stage. On his way back, Duan Lingtian thought about his beautiful tomorrow. The moment he thought of this, he was even more anxious to return home. When Duan Lingtian returned to the Black Turtle Sanctum, Guli had also left the Zoroastrianism. After leaving the Zoroastrianism, he decided on a direction and headed in that direction as though something was guiding him. 30 years. It's been 30 years. Guli muttered to himself as he made his way back. There was a secret in Guli's heart that even his father, Wuxia Yin, did not know about. 30 years ago, he had obtained an incomplete inheritance in the Dao Martial Saint land. The reason the inheritance was incomplete was because there was only a small portion of it. Moreover, it was incomplete. According to the records of the inheritance, if he wanted to obtain the complete inheritance, he would have to go to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land. This was the reason he wanted to come to the upper province. He desperately wanted to obtain the complete inheritance. However, after arriving in the upper province, he did not plan to look for the complete inheritance since he wanted to understand the upper province better. It was only when he was tortured by the Yuan brothers that his competitive spirit was ignited. It made him very eager to obtain the complete inheritance. The reason he did not tell his father, Wuxia Yin, about the inheritance was because the senior who left the inheritance had warned him not to share the inheritance with his friends and family. Unless he met someone who was suitable to inherit the inheritance, he was not allowed to pass the inheritance to anyone else. In order to not make things difficult for himself, he decided to treat this as a secret that only he knew. According to the records of the incomplete inheritance I obtained in the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land, the inheritance I'm about to obtain belongs to an ancient sect, the 7 Absolutes sect. The 7 Absolutes sect has a total of 7 absolutes. The inheritance I'm about to obtain is the 3rd absolute, the Kratos. I'm also the successor of the Kratos progeny. Guli's eyes lit up. As long as I obtain the inheritance of the Kratos progeny, the 3rd absolute of the 7 Absolutes sect, my strength will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. At that time, I'll be able to help junior brother Lingtian when I return to the Zoroastrianism and help him rescue his sister-in-law. The upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land was vast and boundless. It was much larger than the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint land. In the northern polar region of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land, this place was covered in snow all year long. The sky and earth were the same color as the land. At this moment, on the peak of a snowy peak in the polar region of the northern region, an old and aged figure was standing. Although his clothes were thin, he did not seem to feel cold at all. The old man's robe fluttered in the wind, accentuating the white snow that was falling from the sky. He looked like an immortal. At this moment, if there was another person here, they would be able to see that the old man was standing on the snowy peak. Although the old man was in a world of ice and snow, his feet did not touch the ground of the snowy peak. Even the falling snow was blown away by an invisible force when it came close to his robes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The cold wind continued to blow at the old man. However, the old man stood there without moving at all. His gaze was fixed in the southwest direction. His fingers were constantly moving as he muttered to himself, The successor of the fog rain progeny is already here. Moreover, it seems like the successor of the Kratos progeny is about to appear as well. It seems like the day of the Seven Absolutes reunion in the Seven Absolutes sect is not far away. The Seven Absolutes reunion? Old man Tianji, you sure are dreaming. At this moment, a beautiful woman appeared on top of the snowy peak. She walked on the snow without making a sound. The beautiful woman had an exquisite face. Her facial features were almost perfect, making it unforgettable for anyone who saw her. When she heard the old man's words, she could not help but mock him. As far as I know, the Six Absolutes Gemini is still nowhere to be seen, right? The beautiful woman asked again. The Gemini progeny's legacy is in my hands. I've already chosen a successor for it. Based on the time, Shadowless should be bringing them here soon. The old man said. You wooing? That damned ladyboy. A hint of disgust flashed in the beautiful woman's eyes when she heard the old man's words. This disgust was clearly directed at the Shadowless mentioned by the old man. Widow Hua, who are you calling a damned ladyboy? Almost as soon as the beautiful woman finished speaking, a feminine voice sounded. His tone was mixed with a bit of anger. The voice came from the snowy peak, but there was no third figure in sight. I'm talking about whoever has a voice that's neither male nor female. What? Are you still not convinced? Don't forget that your current cultivation base is far inferior to mine. If you're not convinced, why don't you try fighting me? Hearing the feminine voice, the beautiful woman seemed to have changed into a different person, as if she had turned into a shrew. Humph! The feminine voice rang again. However, this time, it was only a snort before it disappeared completely. You're an elder after all. What's wrong with going easy on him? The old man sighed. If Duan Lingtian's father, Duan Ruffling, was here, he would definitely recognize this old man as the oracle man who was elusive. Duan Ruffling was no stranger to the voice earlier. It belonged to Yu Wuing, who had been by his side for some time. The Seven Absolutes sect was divided into 7 absolutes. The 4th absolute was the Shadow progeny. The successor of this progeny was skilled in assassination. Yu Wuing was the current successor of the Shadow progeny. Since the damned ladyboy is here, I'm sure the successor you've chosen for the Gemini progeny must be here as well. Let's go. I'll go with you to meet them, the beautiful woman said. Based on her words, it was obvious she was interested in the successor the oracle man had chosen for the Gemini progeny, the 6th absolute of the 7 absolute sect. At the same time, in the main hall of a palace that stood on a vast platform halfway up the snowy peak, 2 exclamations sounded in unison as a young woman entered. Miss Xuanai. You, why are you here? The young woman was stunned when she saw the pair of twins in front of her. The young woman who walked into the main hall was none other than Han Xuanai, who was brought to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land by her master. She was also the eldest miss of the Greenwave Han mansion in the Debussy subterranean. You're the people that the damned ladyboy, Yu Wuing, brought here? After a while, Han Xuanai seemed to have thought of something and asked in surprise. Xuanai girl, I'll say it again. I'm not a ladyboy. My name is Yu Wuing. You can call me Senior Brother Yu Wuing, or Lord Yu Wuing. Chapter 1954. Miss Xuanai, why are you here? One of the twins looked at Han Xuanai in shock and disbelief. It was apparent he did not expect to see Han Xuanai here. As far as he knew, was Han Xuanai not the eldest young miss of the Greenwave Han mansion, a fifth-rate force in the Debussy subterranean? Why was she here? Nangong Yi, I arrived much earlier than both of you. Han Xuanai blinked her lively eyes. When she spoke, there was a hint of surprise in her tone as well. However, I didn't expect that the successor of the Gemini progeny that the damned ladyboy said was chosen by Grandpa Prophet would actually be the two of you. This is just too shocking. Why are both of you here? The twins standing in front of Han Xuanai were none other than Nangong Chen and Nangong Yi. Both of them had been staying in the Azure Cloud Mansion ever since Duan Lingtian brought them to the Azure Cloud Mansion. It was only recently that Yu Wuing brought them out of the Azure Cloud Mansion and brought them to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land. Along the way, Yu Wuing had told them some things. Due to this reason, they knew both of them would soon become the successors of the Didymus progeny in the Seven Absolutes sect, an ancient sect in the Tao Martial Saint land. To them, this was a great opportunity. They were excited for a long time because of this. However, it did not cross their minds that they would meet Han Xuan'ai here. They were not unfamiliar with Han Xuan'ai. Back when they were still on the mortal continent, Cloud Continent, they had met Han Xuan'ai through Duan Lingtian. Xuan'ai girl, don't blame me for falling out with you if you continue to call me that. The feminine voice resonated again, expressing his displeasure. I'm not the one who gave you the nickname, damned ladyboy. If you want to fall out with me, go look for my master. As long as you can make her stop calling you a damn transvestite, I will definitely stop calling you that in the future. Han Xuan'ai's mischievous eyes flashed as she spoke to the air. Immediately, the feminine voice no longer sounded. It was completely silenced. Yu Wuing had obviously gone to a corner to be depressed. Han Xuan'ai's teacher, that widow Hua, was not only a generation older than him, but her strength was also far from what the current him could compare with. Miss Xuan'ai, are you a disciple of the Seven Absolute sect as well? Nangong Chen, who stood at the side, asked in shock. On the other hand, Han Xuan'ai was even more shocked than him. She looked at Nangong Chen, as though she was looking at a monster. She was extremely shocked. This Nangong Chen knows how to take the initiative to talk to someone? In Han Xuan'ai's memory, although the Nangong brothers were twins, and their appearances and figures were exactly the same, their personalities were different. One of them was active while the other was quiet. Their personalities were polar opposites. Due to this reason, she could not help but feel surprised when she saw Nangong Chen, a taciturn person, taking the initiative to talk. That's right. I'm also a disciple of the Seven Absolutes sect. I'm the successor of the Red Dust progeny. Han Xuan'ai nodded in response to Nangong Chen's question. Although the Red Dust progeny was ranked 7th in the Seven Absolutes sect, its importance was second to none in the Seven Absolutes sect. This was because they were in charge of the most important information. It was not an exaggeration to say that the Red Dust progeny was the eyes and ears of the Seven Absolutes sect. Apart from the Fog Rain Sword, the other 6 absolutes in the Seven Absolutes sect were not ranked based on their strength. Putting everything else aside, even the second absolute, Heavenly Secret, was far inferior to the third absolute, Kratos, in terms of combat prowess, even if they were at the same cultivation base. The third absolute, Kratos, might not be able to dodge the assassination of the fourth absolute, Inying, who was at the same cultivation base. Even the fourth absolute, Inying, might not be able to defeat the sixth absolute, Gemini, who was at the same cultivation base. After all, he could only assassinate one person in a short period of time. However, there were 2 of the 6 absolute Gemini. Both of them were watching him at the same time. Naturally, there was nowhere for him to hide. Apart from the Fog Rain progeny, the 7 absolutes of the Seven Absolutes sect each had their own specialties. Outside the palace, in the distance, the Oracle Man and the beautiful woman walked side by side in the sky, as though they were taking a stroll. Old Man Tianji, do you really plan to activate the 6 absolutes heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation? As they flew through the air, the beautiful woman looked at Elder Tianji and asked with a serious expression. Yes. The Oracle Man nodded before he continued to say, since the successor of the Fog Rain progeny, the first absolute, has appeared, it's time to activate the 6 absolutes heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation left behind by the Sword Saint Patriarch. Otherwise, how can the other 6 absolutes catch up to the successor of the first absolute? Go and look for the successor of the Kratos progeny and bring him back. I'll make a trip to the Phoenix clan and bring the girl from the Blazing Phoenix progeny back. At that time, I'll activate the 6 absolutes heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation and give the successor of the 6 absolutes a great fortune. At that time, it'll be time for the old men of our generation to retire. The Oracle Man said, I've already found a successor for the Red Dust progeny, but I don't think you've found a successor for the Prophet progeny, right? The beautiful woman questioned. If you activate the 6 absolutes heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation, without finding a successor for the prophet progeny, won't you be cutting off the successor of the prophet progeny's future? As for the two of us, we're too old to enjoy the six absolutes heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation. Moreover, as far as I know, the heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation left behind by the Sword Saint ancestor is targeted at the successors of the six absolutes other than the successor of the first absolute. If there's one less absolute, the effect will be greatly reduced. Don't worry, I've already found a successor for the prophet progeny. When I go to the Phoenix clan to bring the girl from the blazing Phoenix progeny back, I'll bring her back as well. The Oracle man said. What? Upon hearing the Oracle man's words, the beautiful woman could not help but turn pale with fright. You've already found a successor for the prophet progeny? Speaking of which, I found her earlier than you. It's just that she didn't cultivate by my side. The Oracle man smiled faintly. Old man, you're really good at hiding things. You didn't even let me know beforehand. To think that I was worried about you. Worried that you wouldn't be able to find a suitable successor. The beautiful woman said in annoyance. Let's go. Follow me to meet the two little fellows from the Gemini progeny. At the same time, the Oracle man and the beautiful woman had also arrived at the palace on the platform halfway up the mountain. The Oracle man took the lead and entered the palace. The beautiful woman, naturally, followed closely behind him. Snow continued to fall from the snowy peak, completely hiding the palace halfway up the mountain. If one did not get close to it, one would not be able to see the palace at all. The snowy peak was hidden in the snowy land, making it very inconspicuous. Due to this reason, it was not targeted by the three great sections. Otherwise, if the people from the three great sects found out that the remaining members of the seven absolute sect were hiding here, they would have sent countless powerhouses here with only one purpose in mind: to kill all the remaining members of the seven absolute sect. Naturally, Duan Lingtian was unaware of the existence of the snowy peak. Apart from that, he was also unaware that the current successors of the seven absolute sect were all gathered here. Moreover, Duan Lingtian did not even know about the existence of the seven absolute sect. He did not even know that his identity as the successor of the Fog Rain progeny was the first absolute and the leader of the seven absolute sect. After returning to the Black Turtle Sanctum, and the place where the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples stayed, Duan Lingtian immediately entered the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to cultivate 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique. As Duan Lingtian circulated the cultivation method, the Sun Saint energy in his body began to circulate through his 99 saint veins. Time flew by. About 5 months had passed by very quickly. At this moment, a vast aura suddenly surged out of Duan Lingtian's body as he sat cross-legged in the air of the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Along with it, the Sun Saint energy solidified. When the Sun Saint energy surged out of his body, it underwent a certain change as well. Following that, the Sun Saint energy returned to Duan Lingtian's body without any warning. It was as though it had never appeared before. I've made a breakthrough. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian opened his eyes. His eyes shone brightly like the stars in the night sky, and they were shining brightly. Earlier, Duan Lingtian's cultivation base had broken through to the Mastery Divine Saint stage. I've spent more than 5 months in the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to break through. It's equivalent to more than half a month in the outside world. As expected of a blue innate spiritual root, it's really efficient. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself as his eyes shone brighter. In just half a month, his cultivation base had broken through to the Mastery Divine Saint stage from the Intermediate Divine Saint stage. Even a monstrous genius with an indigo innate spiritual root might not be able to compare to such a cultivation speed. I'll continue. I'll break through to the peak of the Divine Saint stage in one go. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he closed his eyes and immersed himself in his cultivation again. He circulated his cultivation method, the 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, and continued to cultivate. In his body, the 9 dragons carried the Sun Saint energy and Heaven and Earth Spirit energy, as they circulated one great circulatory cycle after another. When Duan Lingtian opened his eyes again, 1 year and 3 months had passed. Naturally, this was the time in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Only 1.5 months had passed in the outside world. It must be because I've broken through too quickly that my foundation is not stable. This time, it's much slower to break through to the peak of the Divine Saint stage. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself, as his eyes gleamed brightly, when he sensed the majestic Sun Saint energy in his body. Fortunately, nobody heard what he said. Otherwise, they would definitely beat him up. It had only taken him 1.5 months to break through to the Mastery Divine Saint stage, and the peak of the Divine Saint stage. How could he say it was too slow? How was he supposed to live? Chapter 1955. Initially, I thought the transformation of my innate spiritual root would increase my cultivation speed and improve my cultivation base in a short period of time. However, it seems like there's still a limit to it. After cultivating for a while, Duan Lingtian managed to make 2 breakthroughs in his cultivation base. For example, before he had broken through to the peak of the Divine Saint stage, his cultivation base had only just broken through to the Mastery Divine Saint stage. His foundation was not stable at all. It was precisely because of this unstable foundation that he was repeatedly hindered in his later cultivation. If it weren't for this hindrance, I could have saved 1/3 of the time. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If it were not for his unstable foundation, he was confident he would be able to break through from the Mastery Divine Saint stage to the peak of the Divine Saint stage in a month. Due to his unstable foundation, it took him half a month to break through. Of course, the 1 month and half a month referred to the time in the outside world. 1.5 months in the outside world was equivalent to 1 year and 3 months in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. The ratio of time in the outside world to the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was 1 to 10. If I continue to cultivate, although I'll be able to break through to the exemplary saint stage in the end, it'll take me a lot of time. It's better for me to stop cultivating for a while and focus on other things, such as comprehending divine abilities and comprehending the Sovereign Heart Sword. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he stopped cultivating as well. In fact, he did not need to deliberately stabilize his cultivation base. All he needed was some time, and it would naturally stabilize. There's still a month before I have to go to the 4 Symbols Sanctum's first mine to serve. A month outside is equivalent to 10 months in the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. During this time, I'll try to comprehend the Black Turtle Sanctum's most treasured divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. I don't believe I won't be able to comprehend it with my heart, that has been tempered by the Sovereign Heart Sword. Soon after, Duan Lingtian made up his mind. In the following period of time, he would meditate on the Black Turtle Sanctum's most treasured divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. At the same time, he would allow his cultivation base to undergo a transition period and further stabilize his foundation. But 2 months have already passed in the outside world, and Lian still hasn't made a move. It seems like he was rejected when he went to the Saint Lands Enforcement Hall. Before Duan Lingtian comprehended the divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier, he thought of the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder, Lian. He still remembered, 2 months ago, he had killed the Yuan brothers at the Vermilion Bird altar. He should have been sentenced to death. However, since he had displayed his innate spiritual root in front of the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Wu Yi, both of them dismissed the idea of killing him. Martial geniuses with blue innate spiritual roots were the main targets of Zoroastrianism. It was not unforgivable for such an existence to kill 1 or 2 ordinary disciples. After all, compared to the death of 1 or 2 ordinary disciples, the death of such a genius was a greater loss to Zoroastrianism. Given the choice, he would naturally choose to protect the latter. If the former died, then so be it. It didn't affect the overall situation. This further explained that the Tao Martial Saint Land was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Even in a powerful force like Zoroastrianism, under the strict rules of Zoroastrianism, Disciples with high innate talent and value, who would be favored by Zoroastrianism in the future, could also break the rules and receive preferential treatment. 2 months ago, Duan Lingtian was able to turn the situation around because he had displayed his value. He possessed a blue innate spiritual root. Now, Lian must have found out that I possess a blue innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. 2 months ago, Lian refused to accept Guoxiong's decision and had declared that he would go to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to overturn Guoxiong's decision. However, 2 months had passed, and Lian did not make a move. This meant he did not overturn Guoxiong's decision. The dossier that Elder Guoxiong submitted to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall must have stated that I possess a blue innate spiritual root. Otherwise, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall wouldn't have allowed him to do as he pleases. After all, it's fine if I killed Yuan Hong. Many people saw him attacking me first. However, it's not right for Yuan Kuang to do so. Previously, the reason Duan Lingtian dared to kill the Yuan brothers was because he possessed an innate spiritual root that was about to transform. At that time, his innate spiritual root was dark green. If he took another step forward, he would possess a blue innate spiritual root. As it turned out, he was right. After he killed the Yuan brothers and devoured their innate spiritual roots, his innate spiritual root had successfully transformed from a green innate spiritual root to an indigo innate spiritual root. If he did not reveal his blue innate spiritual root and prove his value, the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement Elder Guoxiong and Wui would not have changed their minds so much after the appearance of the Flame Territory. In the end, they even protected him at all costs. In order to protect him, he even made up some high-sounding words. It was all for the sake of justifying their actions. Naturally, this justification was undoubtedly a huge joke to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples who were present that day, because anyone could see that the two law-enforcing elders were spouting nonsense. However, what else could they do? As long as the Saint Lands Enforcement Hall did not pursue this matter, it would be a foregone conclusion. Based on the current situation, this matter should be a foregone conclusion. As for serving the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, it won't affect me at all. According to the Four Symbols Sanctum's rules, the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples, who are punished to serve in the mine, will be exempted from the punishment, as long as they're qualified to enter the Saint Land. Duan Lingtian had heard about how the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples would be punished to serve in the mine if they made a mistake. He also knew that he would be exempted from the punishment, as long as he could enter the Saint Land. It's not difficult for me to enter the Saint Land of Zoroastrianism. With my current strength, it's enough for me to pass the Saint Land's assessment and become a Saint Land's disciple. However, there's still some time before the next Saint Land assessment. For this reason, in Duan Lingtian's opinion, even if he went to the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, he would not have to stay for long. When the Saint Land assessment began, he would be able to leave the mine. As long as he could pass the Saint Land's assessment and become a Saint Land's disciple, he would be exempted from the punishment of serving 10 years. In the next 10 months, I'll properly comprehend the Black Turtle Sanctum's most treasured divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. I don't believe I won't be able to comprehend the Black Turtle's Barrier, the #1 defensive divine ability in Zoroastrianism. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he discarded all distracting thoughts and immersed himself in comprehending the divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. He had memorized a lot of information about the Black Turtle's Barrier when he went to the Black Turtle altar previously. It was very convenient for him to comprehend it now. While Duan Lingtian was comprehending the divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier, Lian was in a bad mood. Don't tell me that Duan Lingtian really possesses a blue innate spiritual root? However, during the innate talent assessment, the result of his innate spiritual root was only yellow. Don't tell me he can hide his cultivation base and his innate spiritual root as well? Lian's expression was grave. More than a month ago, he had gone to the Saint Lands Enforcement Hall with the intention of overturning Guoxiong's verdict on Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian must have killed Yuan Kuang on purpose. Any Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple would be able to testify to this. For this reason, when he went to the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall, he was filled with confidence that he would be able to overturn Guoxiong's verdict on Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, as long as he could overturn Guoxiong's verdict, the St. Land Enforcement Hall would definitely send a St. Land Enforcement Elder to intervene. At that time, Duan Lingtian would definitely die. However, while imagination was beautiful, reality was cruel. When he arrived at the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall and saw the dossier that Guoxiong had submitted regarding his verdict on Duan Lingtian, Lian was dumbfounded. This was because the dossier that Guoxiong had submitted stated that Duan Lingtian might have killed the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple, Yuan Kuang, on purpose. However, since Duan Lingtian was a martial Dao genius with a blue innate spiritual root, according to the unspoken rules of Zoroastrianism, that was above the rules of Zoroastrianism, it was not appropriate to sentence Duan Lingtian to death for the death of an ordinary Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple like Yuan Kuang. For this reason, Guoxiong had decided to send Duan Lingtian to the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mind to serve his sentence. The St. Lan's Enforcement Hall had also approved of this verdict. A martial Dao genius with a blue innate spiritual root was worthy of being given the green light in this matter. Blue innate spiritual root? How's that possible? After Lian finished reading the dossier, he felt as though his heart was being trampled on by thousands of horses. He could not calm down for a long time. Then, he immediately accused Guoxiong of falsifying the dossier. This was because he was certain Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, and not a blue innate spiritual root. However, the elder on duty in the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall replied to him as follows. Before we have sufficient evidence to prove that the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong falsified the dossier, the Enforcement Hall won't accept your accusation, since there's no proof. Naturally, if you insist on suing him, you can do so as well. Our Law Enforcement Hall will send a law enforcement elder to travel with you and verify if what you said is true or false. If the final result proves that what you said is false, our Law Enforcement Hall will deem you as blasphemous against the Law Enforcement Hall and will severely punish you. However, the words of the elder on duty in the St. Lan's Enforcement Hall that day made Lian hesitate. Blasphemy against the Enforcement Hall was not a small crime. Chapter 1956. Even Lian, the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder, did not dare to underestimate the severe punishment meted out by the Enforcement Hall. Please search for the most complete. Damn! For this reason, he had decided to leave the St. Land Enforcement Hall and search for evidence to prove that Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. While he was searching for evidence, he began to investigate the relationship between Duan Lingtian and Guoxiong. As an enforcement elder, Guoxiong was famous for his selflessness in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Otherwise, he would not have been appointed as the enforcement elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum by the St. Land Enforcement Hall. If he had not seen Duan Lingtian being tested for his innate spiritual root, he would not have doubted Guoxiong's judgment at all. Lian had seen Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root being tested for a yellow innate spiritual root. That was why he thought the report Guoxiong submitted to the St. Land Enforcement Hall was fake. In his heart, he had long assumed Duan Lingtian was a mediocre person who possessed a yellow innate spiritual root. There was only one reason a selfless person like Guoxiong would fake Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root. The relationship between him and Duan Lingtian was not simple. For this reason, Lian had been investigating the relationship between Guoxiong and Duan Lingtian in the past 2 months. However, his efforts were in vain. A technique to conceal one's innate spiritual root? Logically speaking, it's impossible. Even if such a technique exists, only powerhouses at the Saint Celestial stage and above would be able to use it. After all, only powerhouses at the Saint Celestial stage and above would be able to sense the existence of their innate spiritual root. If those below the Saint Celestial stage can't even sense their innate spiritual root, how would they be able to use a technique to conceal their innate spiritual root? Lian muttered to himself. He was certain Duan Lingtian had escaped this calamity because Guoxiong had faked the report. He did not know why Guoxiong had faked the report to help Duan Lingtian. Master! All of a sudden, a voice rang from outside, waking Lian up. Come in. As Lian spoke, a figure entered Lian's spacious mansion like a ghost, and arrived at the front courtyard of Lian's residence. The person who came was a middle-aged man with a medium build. His facial features were slightly ferocious, and his messy hair was draped over his shoulders. His eyes were constantly flickering with a frightening luster. He stood there like a vicious wolf, giving people a hair-raising feeling. This middle-aged man was wearing a white robe with bronze flames embroidered on it. However, the flames did not form any pattern. Based on this, one could tell he was a bronze flame elder in the Saint Land. The uniforms of the elders and disciples of the Holy Land only had flames embroidered on them. Only the uniforms of the four symbols sanctums elders and disciples would have patterns embroidered with flames. Greetings, Master. After the middle-aged man entered, he bowed respectfully to Lian Alas. Lian sighed as he looked at the middle-aged man. Wei He, I've let you down. Not only did I cause you to lose a direct disciple, but I also failed to punish the murderer. Based on Lian's words, this middle-aged man was none other than Wei He, the master of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple, Yuan Hong, who was killed by Duan Lingtian 2 months ago. Master, Yuan Hong died for you. His death was glorious. However, Wei He shook his head. As soon as his words left his mouth, his eyes gleamed coldly. However, I didn't expect his murderer to be so skillful that he didn't have to pay with his life. He's just a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root. What right does he have to receive such preferential treatment? When Wei He reached the end of his sentence, his tone was slightly agitated. He only had one direct disciple under him, and that was Yuan Hong. Although Yuan Hong's innate talent was only ordinary in his opinion, he was doted on because he was sensible. After coming out of closed-door cultivation yesterday, since he had nothing to do today, he went to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum to look for his friends. Who would have thought as soon as he arrived at the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, he would learn that his direct disciple, Yuan Hong, had been killed. Moreover, the murderer was still at large. After he learned about the incident and learned the murderer, Duan Lingtian, was a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, he immediately came to the Black Turtle Sanctum. After he arrived at the Black Turtle Sanctum, he first went to look for his master. As far as he knew, when the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong sentenced the murderer, Duan Lingtian, 2 months ago, his master was present. He even said he would go to the Saint Land's enforcement hall to overturn Guoxiong's sentence. However, based on the current situation, his master did not seem to have achieved his goal, even if he went to the Saint Land's enforcement hall. Master, I heard you went to the Saint Land's enforcement hall? Wei He asked as he looked at Lian. Yes. Lian nodded. It would have been fine if Wei He did not mention the Saint Land's enforcement hall. However, as soon as he mentioned it, his expression turned grave immediately. You didn't manage to overturn Guoxiong's sentence? Wei He asked again. No. Lian shook his head. Why? Wei He had an expression of dissatisfaction on his face. As far as I know, not only did Duan Lingtian kill my disciple, but he even killed my disciple's younger brother. My disciple attacked him first and was killed by him. It can still be considered self-defense. However, it's obvious he killed my disciple's younger brother, Yuan Kuang, on purpose. Moreover, many Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples can testify that Duan Lingtian intentionally killed Yuan Kuang. Don't tell me the Saint Land's enforcement hall approved of Guoxiong's sentence? When Wei He reached the end of his sentence, a hint of dissatisfaction could be heard in his voice. In the dossier Guoxiong submitted to the Saint Land's enforcement hall, it said Duan Lingtian is a martial genius who possesses a blue innate spiritual root. Due to this reason, the Saint Land's enforcement hall did not pursue the matter of Duan Lingtian intentionally killing Yuan Kuang. Lian said in a deep voice. Lian felt very depressed and aggrieved when he spoke about this. Blue innate spiritual root? Wei He was stunned. He asked again. Master, as far as I know, doesn't Duan Lingtian possess a yellow innate spiritual root? When he participated in the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple selection, you were one of the hosts, right? That's right. Lian nodded. At that time, he used 2 spiritual pearls to test his innate spiritual root, and both of them revealed that he only possesses a yellow innate spiritual root. I'm 100% certain about this. Then, does this mean there's something wrong with the dossier Guoxiong submitted? He lied about Duan Lingtian possessing a blue innate spiritual root? Wei He's eyes flashed coldly. Initially, I thought so as well. I even wanted to sue that old geezer Guoxiong for this. However, the people from the St. Lands Enforcement Hall said that if I insist on suing Guoxiong, the Enforcement Hall will accept it. However, if the Enforcement Hall finds out that I'm slandering Guoxiong, I'll be punished by the Enforcement Hall. When Lian reached this part of the sentence, a hint of dread could be seen on his face. After all, as the Enforcement Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum, Guoxiong can be considered as a member of the Enforcement Hall. It's not a small crime to slander an Enforcement Elder. Then, Master, you're not certain if Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root or not? Wei He asked with a frown. Master, didn't you personally witness the test of Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root? Didn't you confirm that he possesses a yellow innate spiritual root? It's because Duan Lingtian knows how to conceal his cultivation base. When I think about this, I'm not certain if he knows how to conceal his innate spiritual root or not. However, based on the current situation, this assumption is not valid. Lian continued to say. After all, only those at the Saint Celestial stage and above can sense their innate spiritual roots. However, Duan Lingtian is only an exemplary Saint stage martial cultivator. It's impossible for him to sense his innate spiritual root. If he can't even sense his innate spiritual root, how could he possibly conceal his innate spiritual root? That's right. Wei He's eyes brightened when he heard Li An's speculation. He agreed with this statement. It seems like the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong is indeed playing favoritism and falsifying the dossier. That's what I suspect as well. However, during these 2 months, I've been investigating the relationship between Guoxiong and Duan Lingtian, but I didn't find anything fishy. Logically speaking, as the Black Turtle Sanctum's guardian elder, Guoxiong has always been selfless. He wouldn't help a new disciple who has just entered the Black Turtle Sanctum. Lian shook his head. He could not figure this out as well. For this reason, he was hesitant and could not make up his mind to sue Guoxiong. Master, there must be something going on between Guoxiong and Duan Lingtian. It's just that you didn't notice it because he hid it well. Just like what you've said, it's impossible for Duan Lingtian to conceal his innate spiritual root. Unlike Lian, who was hesitant, Wei He said decisively. Moreover, you've seen it with your own eyes. When he took the innate talent test, it indeed showed that he only has a yellow innate spiritual root. Moreover, he even tested it twice with 2 spiritual pearls. For this reason, we can be certain that Duan Lingtian only has a yellow innate spiritual root. Guoxiong must be lying. After Wei He confirmed this, he said to Lian, Master, based on all these reasons, I've decided to go to the Enforcement Hall in the Saint Land and sue the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong for falsifying the report that Duan Lingtian only has a blue innate spiritual root. Once it's proven that Guoxiong has falsified the report, Duan Lingtian will lose his right to rape in the Zoroastrianism. At that time, as long as the Enforcement Hall makes a new ruling, Duan Lingtian, who only has a yellow innate spiritual root, will definitely die. Moreover, Guoxiong will be in trouble as well. He might even be stripped of his position as the Enforcement Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum. Wei He's words were filled with conviction. The moment he finished speaking, he bade farewell to Lian and left in a hurry before Lian could return to his senses. I'm really getting more and more cowardly. Since when am I not as courageous as my disciple? Lian laughed at himself when he regained his senses. Chapter 1957. There's still no substantial progress. It seems like I'll have to witness someone else casting the Black Turtle's barrier before I can comprehend and master it in a short time. 3 days passed in just a blink of an eye in the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. When Duan Lingtian opened his eyes, he could not help but sigh. However, there are less than 10 people who have successfully comprehended and mastered the Black Turtle's barrier in Zoroastrianism. In our Black Turtle Sanctum, it seems like only the Sanctum leader has mastered the Black Turtle's barrier. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. The Sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum was also a Golden Flame Elder in Zoroastrianism. It was said that he was ranked in the top 50 on the Supreme Saint ranking. Duan Lingtian. While Duan Lingtian was wondering how he could witness the Sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum casting the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, a loud voice resonated in the air without any warning. The voice was extremely penetrating as it passed through the Secundus house and the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda before it entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Who's calling me? Upon hearing the voice, Duan Lingtian could not help but feel puzzled. He was certain he was not familiar with this voice. He had never heard it before. The voice was old. He could tell the person who called him was an old man. I'm Mengjin, a Silver Flame Elder from the Black Turtle Sanctum. After the person called out to Duan Lingtian, he began to introduce himself, as though he was afraid Duan Lingtian would ignore him. Mengjin. Duan Lingtian thought for a moment before he realized he had heard this name before. He was one of the 5 Silver Flame Elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Compared to Lian Guoxiong and Tung Shan, Mengjin did not have much of a presence. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian had to think carefully before he remembered him. After leaving the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and putting it away, Duan Lingtian pushed open the door and left the second house. As soon as he left the Secundus house, Duan Lingtian noticed 2 gazes that descended onto him. One of the gazes was fine, but the other gaze was filled with hostility. Duan Lingtian followed his gaze and looked over. With just a glance, he saw 2 figures standing in the air not far away, one in front and one behind. The person in front was an old man. He was wearing the exclusive uniform of the Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame Elder. He had a well-built body. If one did not look above his neck, one would not be able to tell that he was an old man. The person standing behind the old man was no stranger to Duan Lingtian. This person was none other than the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, who was defeated by him 2 months ago. His name seemed to be Zhang Ji. As for the old man, he was none other than the Silver Flame Elder Mengjin. Elder Mengjin, are you looking for me? Duan Lingtian asked curiously as he looked at the old man. You come with me, Mengjin said indifferently. Mengjin said as he looked at Duan Lingtian indifferently. As soon as he finished speaking, he began to walk out of the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple's residence. It was as though he was not worried that Duan Lingtian would not follow him. Farewell, master. Before Duan Lingtian could make a move, he heard Zhang Ji bowing respectfully at Mengjin, who was leaving. Zhang Ji's voice was filled with respect. Elder Mengjin is Zhang Ji's master? Upon seeing this, Duan Lingtian could not help but feel surprised. Although he had seen Zhang Ji standing by Elder Mengjin's side earlier, he had thought that Zhang Ji had been captured by Elder Mengjin to ask about his residence. Who would have thought that Elder Mengjin was actually Zhang Ji's teacher? However, even though Duan Lingtian knew Mengjin was Zhang Ji's master, he still followed him. With so many people watching, he was not worried Mengjin would do anything to him. Duan Lingtian has left with Elder Mengjin. Elder Mengjin seems to be here to look for Duan Lingtian. Is he going to seek revenge for his direct disciple, Zhang Ji, for what happened 2 months ago? Do you think that's possible? That happened 2 months ago. If Elder Mengjin wants to seek revenge for Zhang Ji, he would have done it a long time ago. Why would he wait until today? You have a point. The group of Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples who happened to see Duan Lingtian leaving with Mengjin could not help but discuss among themselves. They did not leave Duan Lingtian's side at all. In any case, senior brother Duan Lingtian won't be at a disadvantage. 2 months ago, he killed 2 people in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum and caused such a huge commotion. However, he was only sentenced to 10 years of service in our 4 Symbols Sanctum's first mine. He killed a fellow disciple. It's not a small mistake. Didn't they say the two people from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum were courting death and wanted to kill Duan Lingtian? That's why they were killed by Duan Lingtian, right? Duan Lingtian acted in self-defense. That's why he was given such a light punishment. That's not the case. I have a friend who's a Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple. He witnessed what happened that day. According to him, one of the two Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples did attack Duan Lingtian first. However, that person might not have the intention to kill Duan Lingtian. He most likely wanted to teach Duan Lingtian a lesson to seek revenge for our Black Turtle Sanctum's Elder Lien. A Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple seeking revenge for Elder Lien? Are you sure you're not mistaken? You don't know this, right? That Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple is the direct disciple of Elder Lian's first direct disciple. He's Elder Lian's grand disciple. What's so strange about him seeking revenge for his grand master? Let's not talk about whether Elder Lian's grand disciple who attacked Duan Lingtian had the intention to kill Duan Lingtian. It's said that the other Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple was killed by Duan Lingtian, even though he did not make a move at all. In the opinion of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples who were present at that time, Duan Lingtian had intentionally killed Duan Lingtian. However, in the end, our Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong only sentenced Duan Lingtian to serve in the mining area for 10 years. Don't tell me the enforcement elder from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum has no objections to Elder Guoxiong's decision? It's said that the decision to punish Duan Lingtian was made by Elder Guoxiong and the enforcement elder from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. As the group of Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples chatted, they began to talk about the incident that Duan Lingtian had caused in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum 2 months ago. News of that incident had already spread throughout the Four Symbols Sanctums. At the same time, many Four Symbols Sanctums disciples questioned the decision made by the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong. However, it was useless. As the saying went, the words of a lowly person carry little weight. As time passed, fewer and fewer people discussed this matter. However, many of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples had doubts in their hearts. Duan Lingtian had a powerful background. Otherwise, how could he have intentionally killed someone without paying with his life? On the other hand, after Duan Lingtian caught up with Meng Jin, one of the 5 great silver flame elders from the Black Turtle Sanctum, he could not help but ask, "Elder Meng Jin, where are you bringing me?" "You'll know when we get there," Meng Jin said indifferently. "You'll find out when you get there." However, when Duan Lingtian heard Meng Jin's words, he came to a halt and said with a frown, "Elder Meng Jin, if you don't make it clear, don't blame me for not cooperating. Who knows if you're looking for revenge, because I injured your disciple 2 months ago. Seek revenge from you?" When Meng Jin heard Duan Lingtian's words, he was stunned for a moment before he chuckled. "An old man like me won't be so shameless as to interfere in a fight between juniors like you. Moreover, the fact that you injured him is also a form of training for him. I'm more than happy. Why would I seek revenge from you?" Meng Jin's words were so frank that Duan Lingtian had no choice but to believe him. "Forget it, it's just the two of us now. There's no harm in telling you." After a while Meng Jin said again, "I've come to look for you on the orders of Elder Qian, the Silver Flame Elder from the Saint Land Enforcement Hall." "The Saint Land Enforcement Hall? Elder Qian, the Silver Flame Elder?" Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes and asked, "Elder Meng Jin, do you know why Elder Qian is looking for me?" At this moment, Duan Lingtian could not help but feel anxious. Could it be that Lian had really overturned the decision made by Elder Guoxiong 2 months ago? However, as soon as this thought appeared in his mind, he quickly suppressed it. He felt it was impossible. With the grade of his innate spiritual root, even the Saint Land Enforcement Hall would choose to protect him. However, if Elder Guoxiong's decision wasn't overturned, why did the Silver Flame Elder from the Saint Land Enforcement Hall come to look for me in the Black Turtle Sanctum? Duan Lingtian was puzzled by this. "I don't know the exact reason as well. However, Wei He came with him as well," Meng Jin said as he led the way. Duan Lingtian caught up to him again. "Wei He." This was his first time hearing this name. Wei He is the direct disciple of our Black Turtle Sanctum's Elder Lian. He's also the master of Yuan Hong, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple whom you killed 2 months ago. Meng Jin said again. Yuan Hong's master? Duan Lingtian frowned. The confusion on his face grew. Under Meng Jin's lead, Duan Lingtian arrived at a secluded palace in the north of the Black Turtle Sanctum. This palace was located in the forest. It was very inconspicuous. If it was not for Meng Jin leading the way, Duan Lingtian might not have been able to find this place. The palace was slightly dilapidated, but it was still clean. Duan Lingtian followed closely behind Meng Jin and entered the main hall of the palace. With just a glance, he saw a familiar figure. The familiar figure was one of the 3 figures standing in the main hall. It was none other than the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong. Elder Guoxiong, why are you here? Duan Lingtian asked through voice transmission when he saw Guoxiong. Someone accused me of abusing my authority and lying about the grade of your innate spiritual root to clear your name. Guoxiong replied through voice transmission. What? Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Guoxiong's words. Immediately afterward, when his gaze fell on the middle-aged man who was staring at him coldly, he vaguely guessed something. He's Wei He. He's the one who accused Elder Guoxiong of abusing his authority and lying about the grade of my innate spiritual root to clear my name? Lying about the grade of my innate spiritual root? It seems like Lian doesn't believe my innate spiritual root is blue. Chapter 1958. But this time, I'm afraid Lian is going to screw over his own personal disciple. Duan Lingtian smirked inwardly as he looked at Wei He. Duan Lingtian, this is Elder Qian from the St. Lands Enforcement Hall. Meng Jin introduced Elder Qian to Duan Lingtian. After leading Duan Lingtian in, he looked at the old man who was surrounded by Guoxiong and Wei He before introducing himself to Duan Lingtian. Greetings, Elder Qian. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian greeted the old man politely. Elder Qian was a scholarly old man who appeared to be very kind. When he saw Duan Lingtian greeting him, he nodded at Duan Lingtian with a gentle smile on his face. You're Duan Lingtian? Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. I came to the Black Turtle Sanctum today because of the verdict your Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder, Elder Guoxiong, made on you 2 months ago. Elder Qian did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Duan Lingtian nodded again. His expression was calm, as though he did not feel guilty at all. In fact, there was nothing for him to feel guilty about. Upon seeing this, Wei He smirked inwardly. Humph. You're just bluffing. Later on, when Elder Qian personally examines your innate spiritual root, I want to see if you can still be as calm as you are now. In Wei He's heart, he had already sentenced Duan Lingtian to death. He was certain Duan Lingtian only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root because of his first impression. Aren't you surprised at all? Elder Qian asked curiously when he saw Duan Lingtian's calm expression. Elder Qian, I've long guessed this would happen. However, I didn't expect the person who wants to overturn Elder Guoxiong's verdict isn't Elder Lian from our Black Turtle Sanctum. When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, he shifted his gaze and looked at Wei He who was standing next to Elder Qian meaningfully. There's no need for my master to overturn your verdict. When Wei He saw the mockery in Duan Lingtian's eyes, he who originally did not intend to speak was instantly enraged. He could not help but sneer when he saw the mockery in Duan Lingtian's eyes. Humph. However, Elder Qian was displeased by Wei He's words. He snorted. It's not that easy to overturn a verdict in enforcement elder's verdict. Before the truth is clear, everything is still unknown. In the fire worship sect, it was equivalent to slapping the St. Lands Enforcement Hall in the face if someone questioned or even tried to overturn the decision of an enforcement elder. In Zoroastrianism, all the enforcement elders, including the 4 enforcement elders from the 4 symbols sanctums, were directly appointed by the St. Land Enforcement Hall. Questioning the verdict of any enforcement elder was equivalent to questioning the judgment of the St. Land Enforcement Hall. For this reason, when Lian wanted to accuse the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong of abusing his power for personal gain, the elder on duty in the St. Land Enforcement Hall had given him a warning. It was fine to accuse an enforcement elder appointed by the enforcement hall. However, if the truth was revealed, the accuser's actions would be considered as blasphemy against the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. In Zoroastrianism, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall was in charge of enforcing the law. It was a sacred and dignified place. If anyone dared to blaspheme against the Saint Land Enforcement Hall, they would be severely punished. The Saint Land Enforcement Hall's dignity was not to be trifled with. In the history of Zoroastrianism, many people had blasphemed against the Saint Land Enforcement Hall in various ways. Although most of them did it unintentionally, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall did not care about this. In the end, at least half of those people died from the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's punishment. Yes, Elder Qian. Wei He's heart skipped a beat when he heard Elder Qian's snort. He quickly replied and no longer dared to say anything else. However, when he looked at Duan Lingtian, a hint of mockery could be seen in his eyes. Whoosh! Elder Qian was a straightforward person. With a raise of his hand, he took out a spiritual pearl that was used to test innate spiritual roots, and passed it to Duan Lingtian. Use this spiritual pearl to test your innate spiritual root. If the spiritual pearl shows that you have a blue innate spiritual root, I'll use my divine consciousness to enter your soul to sense and investigate your innate spiritual root to see if it's really a blue innate spiritual root. Do you have any objections? As soon as Elder Qian finished speaking, his gaze turned stern as he looked at Duan Lingtian. It gave Duan Lingtian a sense of pressure. I'll do as you say, Elder Qian. Under Wei He's shocked gaze, Duan Lingtian, who was facing the pressure from Elder Qian, was still as calm as ever. He readily reached out his hand and took the spiritual pearl from Elder Qian. He can still be so calm at a time like this? If Wei He had thought Duan Lingtian was deliberately mystifying himself, he could not help but have an ominous feeling when he saw how calm Duan Lingtian was when he was being tested by Elder Qian. The Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong stood on the other side of Elder Qian. From the beginning until the end, Guoxiong's expression did not change at all. In his opinion, the ruling he made to Duan Lingtian was carried out according to the unspoken rules of Zoroastrianism. There was no suspicion of favoritism at all. Due to this reason, Wei He's complaint to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall was just a farce to him. In any case, he would not be the one to suffer in the end. When Duan Lingtian held the spiritual pearl in his hand, apart from Guoxiong, who did not pay much attention to it, everyone else, including Elder Qian from the Saint Land Enforcement Hall, Wei He and Meng Jin, were staring at the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand intently. They were waiting for a reaction. After the span of 10 breaths, the spiritual pearl would tell them the grade of Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root. Time continued to pass by quietly. After the span of a breath, after the span of 2 breaths, after the span of 10 breaths, the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand finally reacted. Elder Qian, Wei He, and Meng Jin immediately narrowed their eyes. Then, under the watchful eyes of the 3 of them, a faint green light shone from the spiritual pearl. In the end, the green light shone brightly. It was dazzling. It's really a blue innate spiritual root. Meng Jin could not help but exclaim in a low voice. Impossible. Wei He's expression changed drastically when he saw the green light shining from the spiritual pearl in Duan Lingtian's hand. After a while, shock and disbelief could be seen on his face. There must be something wrong with this spiritual pearl. Change it to another one. I have a spiritual pearl here as well. Change it to another one. As Wei He spoke, he hastily took out a spiritual pearl and threw it at Duan Lingtian. Smack! Although Duan Lingtian could ignore the spiritual pearl that Wei He threw at him, he still extended his hand to catch the spiritual pearl in order to make Wei He give up hope and despair. He wanted to use Wei He's spiritual pearl to test his innate spiritual root again. When Wei He saw Duan Lingtian catching his spiritual pearl, he stared at it with a hint of hope in his eyes. At this moment, he completely viewed this spiritual pearl as his last hope. However, after the span of 10 breaths, his spiritual pearl shone with a dazzling green light as well. Horror and disbelief could be seen in his eyes. How could this be? Impossible. It's impossible. When you first entered Zoroastrianism, my master witnessed you being tested twice for your innate spiritual root. Both times, you only have a yellow innate spiritual root. You must have used some sort of trick. You must have. Wei He's face was filled with disbelief as he roared continuously. At this moment, he had completely lost his composure. Meng Jin glanced at Wei He and shook his head. At this moment, even an outsider like him could confirm that Duan Lingtian indeed possessed a blue innate spiritual root. As for why Duan Lingtian was tested to possess a yellow innate spiritual root, when he first arrived at the Black Turtle Sanctum, he had no idea. He only believed what he saw with his own eyes. Enough! It wasn't until Elder Qian's shout that Wei He quivered and quieted down. Whether he's using some sort of trick or not, the truth will be revealed once I probe his soul with my divine consciousness and sense his innate spiritual root. Upon hearing Elder Qian's words, a glimmer of hope appeared in the depth of Wei He's eyes again. Once again, he saw Elder Qian's divine consciousness as his last hope. Duan Lingtian, my divine consciousness will only probe and sense your innate spiritual root. It won't harm your soul. Therefore, there's no need for you to feel pressured. Just let it be, Elder Qian said as he looked at Duan Lingtian. All right. Duan Lingtian nodded. Duan Lingtian's straightforwardness and cooperation left a good impression on Elder Qian. After he smiled at Duan Lingtian, he extended his divine consciousness to probe and sense Duan Lingtian's innate spiritual root. As soon as Elder Qian's divine consciousness entered Duan Lingtian's soul, it pressured Duan Lingtian. This was because Elder Qian's divine consciousness was extremely powerful. However, compared to Hualao's divine consciousness, Elder Qian's divine consciousness is much weaker. Soon after, Duan Lingtian realized this as well. It seems like Hualao has recovered a lot of his strength. If he can come out of the Seven Treasures' exquisite pagoda, with his strength and divine abilities, even the Golden Flame Elder of Zoroastrianism might not be a match for him. When Duan Lingtian thought of this, he felt it was a pity. It was a pity Hualao could not come out. Otherwise, Hualao would be a super fighter by his side. If he had a super fighter by his side, he would have charged into the Saint Land Enforcement Hall of Zoroastrianism to rescue his wife and daughter and bring them away from Zoroastrianism. Is this Wei He an idiot? Things have already come to this, and he's still holding on to hope. Chapter 1959. Soon after, Elder Qian withdrew his divine consciousness under the watchful eyes of the others. Wei He immediately looked at Elder Qian. The hope in his eyes grew brighter. There's no doubt Duan Lingtian possesses a blue innate spiritual root. Sensing Wei He's gaze, Elder Qian swept his gaze over Wei He. His gaze instantly turned cold as he sternly shouted, Wei He, you've slandered the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong. This is equivalent to disrespecting the Saint Land's Enforcement Hall. Now follow me back to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to receive your punishment. Just as Elder Qian finished speaking, Wei He's expression changed completely, becoming fearful and uneasy. Elder Qian, I'm only worried because my direct disciple was killed. Please have mercy, Elder Qian, please have mercy. In the next instant, Wei He no longer cared about Duan Lingtian, as he begged Elder Qian for mercy. If he was sent to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall, he would be skinned alive even if he did not die. Humph. However, Elder Qian completely ignored Wei He's begging. After he snorted coldly, he waved his hand, and a vast energy pressed down on Wei He, suppressing him. After suppressing Wei He, Elder Qian lifted him up like an eagle catching a chick. Elder Guoxiong, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall will give you an explanation for Wei He slandering you, Elder Qian said as he looked at Guoxiong. After he finished speaking, he brought the pale-faced Wei He away. In just a blink of an eye, they disappeared before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others. Duan Lingtian, I can't believe you possess a blue innate spiritual root. After Elder Qian brought Wei He away, Meng Jin looked at Duan Lingtian and sighed. I was wondering why Elder Guoxiong would take care of you 2 months ago. As it turns out, it's because you possess a blue innate spiritual root. It's enough for you to be taken care of by the unspoken rules of Zoroastrianism. Thank you for leading the way, Elder Meng Jin. Duan Lingtian nodded at Meng Jin. Although he was not fond of Meng Jin's direct disciple, Zhang Ji, he approved of Meng Jin's character. At the very least, Meng Jin wouldn't blindly protect him. This could be seen from Meng Jin's attitude on the road. I still have some things to do. Elder Guoxiong Duan Lingtian, I'll take my leave first. After a short moment, Meng Jin bid farewell and left, leaving only Duan Lingtian and Guoxiong in the hall. Meng Jin had tactfully left, because Guoxiong had instructed him to. Guoxiong had something to say to Duan Lingtian in private. Duan Lingtian, you'll head to the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine in a month. Are you ready? Guoxiong looked at Duan Lingtian and asked. I've been ready for a long time. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly before he said. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you for your judgment, Elder Guoxiong. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have been executed 2 months ago. You don't have to thank me. You know very well that you're only alive because of your innate talent. If your innate spiritual root wasn't a blue innate spiritual root, but a yellow innate spiritual root, I wouldn't have been able to protect you even if I wanted to. Guoxiong said. Perhaps at that time, what happened today would have happened as well. However, Wei He wouldn't be the unlucky one. We would be the unlucky one. Wei He. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes as it flashed coldly. He could not help but ask, Elder Guoxiong, what kind of punishment will Wei He receive for slandering you and blaspheming the Saint Land Enforcement Hall? Will he be executed by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall? He won't be executed. Guoxiong shook his head. His eyes flashed coldly when he mentioned Wei He. However, even if he doesn't die, he'll be skinned alive. Blaspheming the Saint Land Enforcement Hall is not a small crime. Moreover, Elder Qian has already promised me that the Saint Land Enforcement Hall will give me an explanation. For this reason, I'm certain Wei He won't be lightly punished. Guoxiong continued to say. He won't be executed? Duan Lingtian was disappointed when he heard this. Wei He's actions today were clearly to harm him. If his innate spiritual root was a yellow innate spiritual root, instead of a blue innate spiritual root, he would have been killed by Wei He. Duan Lingtian had always advocated an eye for an eye for an eye for an eye for an eye. Naturally, he was disappointed when he heard Wei He would not be executed by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. Why? Do you really want him to die? Since Duan Lingtian did not deliberately conceal his emotions, Guoxiong could easily see through it, and asked in a timely manner. Don't tell me you don't want him to die after being slandered by him, Elder Guoxiong? Duan Lingtian asked. To me, even if he doesn't die, he'll be skinned alive. That's enough to quench my anger. Naturally, I'll feel better if he's executed. Duan Lingtian was slightly disappointed when he heard the first half of Guoxiong's sentence. However, when Guoxiong finished his sentence, Duan Lingtian realized he and Elder Guoxiong were kindred spirits. However, it won't be easy for him to be executed. If he's not at the Saint Celestial stage or above, he won't be able to survive the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's punishment. Unfortunately, as a Saint Land Bronze Flame Elder, he's only at the Saint Celestial stage. Guoxiong sighed when he reached the end of his sentence. A hint of pity could be heard in his voice. Elder Guoxiong. However, at this moment, Duan Lingtian's eyes gleamed as he asked. If I'm not mistaken, the news of Wei He accusing you and asking the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's elder to come here shouldn't have spread, right? Yes. Guoxiong nodded. Usually, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall wouldn't spread such news. After all, the Enforcement Hall can't be sure if I'm really cheating or not. If I'm really cheating, it'll damage the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's reputation if news of this spreads out. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Duan Lingtian nodded. His eyes gleamed coldly as he asked again. However, if news of Wei He slandering you and blaspheming the Saint Land Enforcement Hall spreads out, what would the consequences be? If news of this spreads out, it won't damage the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's reputation. The Saint Land Enforcement Hall won't pursue the matter, right? Theoretically, yes. However, once news of this spreads out, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall will be pressured as well. If Wei He's punishment isn't severe enough, it won't show that the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's reputation is not to be trifled with. Guo Xiong replied instinctively when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. However, in the end, his eyes brightened as he stared at Duan Lingtian intently. You're saying we should spread this news, so the Saint Land Enforcement Hall will be pressured into killing Wei He to protect the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's dignity? It's not me, it's you. Duan Lingtian shook his head. I'm just an ordinary Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple. I don't dare to spread news of this at the risk of offending the Saint Land's Black Turtle Sanctum. Elder Guo Xiong, as the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder appointed by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. Even if news of this spreads out, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall won't blame you. Moreover, if you do this, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall will think you deliberately spread news of this, because Wei He provoked you. That's why you want to kill him. Duan Lingtian's words were flawless. Duan Lingtian, you're really wishful thinking. Guo Xiong was stunned by Duan Lingtian's words. When he regained his senses, he could not help but stare at Duan Lingtian intently. However, are you so sure I'll spread news of this, to force the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to kill Wei He? I'm not sure. Duan Lingtian shook his head. I'm only giving you a suggestion, Elder Guo Xiong. As for whether you want to spread news of this, the choice is in your hands, Elder Guo Xiong. Just like Elder Guo Xiong, although I want him to die, his death doesn't affect me at all. I, Duan Lingtian, have even offended his master Lian. How could I be afraid of him? When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, he smiled disdainfully. Duan Lingtian, in the past, I thought it was unwise for you to make an enemy out of Lian, because I thought you overestimated yourself. However, why do I suddenly have a feeling that you'll be the one who has the last laugh in this game of chess with Lian? Guo Xiong looked at Duan Lingtian intently again. Although he appeared calm on the surface, his heart was in turmoil. Duan Lingtian's suggestion, to force the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to kill Wei He showed how meticulous he was. It was not something an ordinary person could compare to. At the very least, Guo Xiong did not think of this. Elder Guo Xiong, you flatter me. I'm merely an ordinary Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple. How can I possibly fight with Lian? He's the first Silver Flame Elder in our Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian smiled humbly. However, his words were casual. It was obvious he was saying one thing, but he was thinking another. Naturally, Guo Xiong could see Duan Lingtian's insincerity, but he did not point it out. Then, Guo Xiong smiled faintly and said, Duan Lingtian, 2 months ago, I intended to recommend you to Lord Sanctum Leader, so that he could accept you as his direct disciple. If Lord Sanctum Leader accepts you as his direct disciple, as long as he recommends you to enter the Saint Land and become a Saint Land disciple, you'll naturally be exempted from the punishment of serving in the mine. However, when I went to look for Lord Sanctum Leader 2 months ago, I learned he was at a critical juncture in his closed-door cultivation. For this reason, I didn't disturb him. Until now, he hasn't come out of his closed-door cultivation. Guo Xiong continued to say, if Lord Sanctum Leader doesn't come out of his closed-door cultivation within a month, I'll have no choice but to personally send you to serve in the first mine of our 4 symbol sanctums. However, don't worry. As soon as Lord Sanctum Leader comes out of his closed-door cultivation, I'll definitely recommend you to him. Upon hearing Guo Xiong's words, Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes. The Sanctum Leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum was actually in closed-door cultivation? Duan Lingtian immediately dismissed the idea of watching the Sanctum Leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum cast the divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. Chapter 1960. Elder Guo Xiong. Duan Lingtian's expression turned solemn as he looked at Guo Xiong. I understand your good intentions in recommending me to Lord Sanctum Leader as his disciple, but I appreciate your good intentions. I already have a master. Moreover, according to the customs in my hometown, once I have a master, I'm not allowed to acknowledge a second master before obtaining the permission of that master. Otherwise, it'll be considered treason. Duan Lingtian's words were filled with conviction. You already have a master? Guo Xiong was surprised. He asked again, which force does your master belong to? My master is just a sectless cultivator. He doesn't belong to any force. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Duan Lingtian, think about it carefully. If you can acknowledge a golden flame elder, like Lord Sanctum Leader, as your master in Zoroastrianism, it'll only be beneficial to you. Guoxiong advised with a solemn expression. Put everything else aside. Just take the conflict between you and Lian as an example. If you can become the direct disciple of the Sanctum Leader of our Black Turtle Sanctum, Lian won't dare to make an enemy out of you even if he's 10 times more courageous. Most importantly, Lord Sanctum Leader won't mind if you have another master before this. As long as you're willing to acknowledge him as your master, with your innate talent, he won't reject you. Guoxiong's persuasion was also earnest and well-intentioned. In his opinion, with Duan Lingtian's blue innate spiritual root, and his monstrous innate talent in comprehending divine abilities, Duan Lingtian was definitely the most sought-after martial genius, with a blue innate spiritual root in Zoroastrianism. He was certain as long as he recommended Duan Lingtian to the Sanctum Leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum, the Sanctum Leader would definitely accept Duan Lingtian as his disciple without any hesitation. Elder Guoxiong, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I've already made up my mind. Duan Lingtian shook his head. When he spoke again, his tone was resolute and decisive. He did not leave any room for negotiation. To be honest, he was naturally tempted by Guoxiong's words. However, he still felt it was inappropriate. Put aside the fact that he would be letting down his master, Feng Qingyang, whom he had yet to meet. Even if his master did not mind, he did not want to drag other people into this. That was right. He did not want to drag other people into this. He did not come to the fire worship sect to become a fire worship sect's disciple. He did not want to rise up the ranks and become a high-ranking official in the fire worship sect in the future. There was only one purpose for him to come to Zoroastrianism. That was to save his wife and daughter. To save his master. Whether or not his master's knowledge or not, he would be affected would be Duan his master as his master, S master's master. S master's masters he. A master for a master. Master to teach to Lingtian a master. Duan Lingtian. Let alone the fact that the other party was his master. If it was possible, Duan Lingtian did not want to implicate any innocent people because of his matter. Forget it. Since you've already made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. When Guoxiong saw how resolute Duan Lingtian was, he did not try to persuade Duan Lingtian. He sighed and said, I'll pick you up in a month's time. We'll head to the first mine in the Four Symbols Sanctums. After Guoxiong finished speaking, he left. He did not even bid farewell to Duan Lingtian. It was obvious he was angered by Duan Lingtian's stubbornness. After Guoxiong left, Duan Lingtian returned to his residence in the Black Turtle Sanctum and returned to his Secundus house. However, he did not enter closed-door cultivation in the following month. Instead, he would occasionally comprehend the Sovereign Heart Sword and the divine abilities, the elementary devouring tactic, and the otherworldly celestial that he had mastered. As for the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, he temporarily put it aside. There's no need for me to waste my time on the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, before I see someone else casting it. This was also the reason Duan Lingtian did not continue to comprehend the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier. Apart from that, there was still room for improvement in both the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, and the otherworldly celestial. For this reason, Duan Lingtian spent more time on them. Heaven rewarded those who worked hard. 10 months later, Duan Lingtian finally reached the threshold of the third stage of the Sovereign Heart Sword. Moreover, he had mastered the divine ability, the otherworldly celestial. However, his divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, seemed to have reached a bottleneck. It's time. Duan Lingtian left the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda with just a thought. After he put the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda away, he pushed the door open and went to the small courtyard outside his room. He sat down in front of the stone table in the courtyard. 10 months in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was only 1 month outside. Judging by the time, Elder Guoxiong should be here soon. Duan Lingtian thought to himself, as he sat in front of the stone table. At this moment, a voice resonated from the lower floor of the Secundus house he was in. Have you heard? Elder Lian's eldest direct disciple, Wei He, was executed by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall 3 days ago. Wei He was executed. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian could not help but feel stunned. Then, another voice resonated in the air. It can't be right? He's really executed? Just because of the news that spread earlier? Humph. Don't underestimate that news. I don't know who spread it, but it said that Wei He had challenged the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's authority and was detained by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. The voice that came first sounded again. Perhaps, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall did not intend to kill Wei He because he's a bronze flame elder and possesses a blue innate spiritual root. However, someone spread the news that Wei He had blasphemed the Saint Land Enforcement Hall and challenged the authority of the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. Wouldn't the Saint Land Enforcement Hall's authority be tarnished if they don't execute Wei He? In the fire worship sect, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall is a sacred place that cannot be desecrated. What would the others think if someone managed to survive after such a place was desecrated by someone? They would only look down on the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. One must admit that the owner of this voice had a clear understanding of this matter. Now that you mention it, you're right. However, have you heard about how Wei He blasphemed the Saint Land Enforcement Hall? The owner of the other voice asked. I've heard about this. It's said that 3 months ago, our Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guixiong made a ruling on Duan Lingtian. For this reason, Wei He went to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to accuse Elder Guixiong of abusing his power for personal gain. The first voice continued to say, I've heard that the Saint Land Enforcement Hall has personally sent people to our Black Turtle Sanctum to investigate. However, the results show that Wei He had slandered Elder Guixiong. Not only did Wei He not avenge his direct disciple, but he even sacrificed his own life. How pitiful. The second voice continued to enter Duan Lingtian's ears. It seems like Elder Guixiong has spread the news in the end. Duan Lingtian smiled faintly. He knew his suggestion had been accepted by the enforcement elder. Duan Lingtian. Just as Duan Lingtian was thinking about Guixiong, a voice resonated in the distance. Accompanying the voice was a tall figure. It was none other than Guixiong. Guixiong had arrived as scheduled. He brought Duan Lingtian to the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine for his service. Elder Guixiong, did the enforcement hall of the Holy Land find out who spread the news? Duan Lingtian could not help but ask on the way to the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine. Yes, they did. Guixiong nodded. Then, he looked at Duan Lingtian deeply. It's just as you've said. After the Saint Land Enforcement Hall found out I was the one who spread the news, they didn't make things difficult for me. Everything was just as Duan Lingtian had said. Due to this reason, Guixiong was even more shocked by how meticulous Duan Lingtian was. He could not help but make up his mind. Even if he had to fall out with Lian, he would never make an enemy out of Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian gave him a feeling that was even more dangerous than Lian. Wei He's death. I'm sure Lian isn't feeling too good either, right? Duan Lingtian smiled faintly. In his opinion, Lian was the one who had tricked his eldest direct disciple, Wei He. If Lian had not told Wei He that he only possessed a yellow innate spiritual root, Wei He would not have been so foolish as to go to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to sue the Black Turtle Sanctum's guardian elder Guixiong for abusing his power for personal gain. It could be said that Wei He had dug his own grave. And the reason why he went to seek death was also related to Lian. Wei He was sentenced to death by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall 3 days ago. The news has only reached our Black Turtle Sanctum today. Even if Lian has learned about this, he must have just learned about it not long ago, Guixiong said. That's right. Just as Guixiong had said, Lian had also just learned about Wei He being sentenced to death by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. Bang! With a loud sound, the stone table in front of Lian collapsed and turned into dust. I've let you down. Lian's expression turned grave as his eyes turned red. His body emitted a terrifying aura that kept people away. Wei He was his eldest personal disciple, as well as his first personal disciple. He had a special relationship with this direct disciple. He even treated him like his own son. However, this direct disciple whom he treated like his own son had died. I've underestimated Duan Lingtian. I can't believe he really possesses a blue innate spiritual root. After confirming Duan Lingtian possessed a blue innate spiritual root, Lian felt pressured. Coupled with the fact that he had just learned that his eldest direct disciple had been sentenced to death by the Saint Land Enforcement Hall. He could not wait to find Duan Lingtian and kill him. Lian blamed Duan Lingtian for Wei He's death. At this moment, his desire to kill Duan Lingtian was unprecedentedly strong. Duan Lingtian, you've caused me to lose my family. I'll let you have a taste of losing your family as well. The moment Lian thought of this, his eyes flashed coldly as killing intent surged out of his body. In the next instant, he left his residence and the Black Turtle Sanctum. His target was the White Tiger Sanctum. Chapter 1961. There was only one purpose for Lian to go to the White Tiger Sanctum. He wanted to look for Duan Lingtian's companion Zhu Luqi. He still remembered when Duan Lingtian had just arrived at the Zoroastrianism. He had 2 companions with him. Everyone, please search for the complete answer. Damn. After some investigation, he learned that one of Duan Lingtian's companions was called Gu Li while the other was called Zhu Luqi. The former was in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, while the latter was in the White Tiger Sanctum. Humph. I don't believe that Zhu Luqi and Gu Li are like Duan Lingtian and refused to come out. Lian snorted inwardly with a grave expression on his face. Ever since Duan Lingtian had killed Li An's grand disciple, Yuan Hong, 3 months ago in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, Lian had been lurking near the residence of the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples. He was waiting for Duan Lingtian to come out. When Duan Lingtian was alone, he would capture Duan Lingtian and perform the soul-searching secret tactic on him. In the Zoroastrianism, even if Duan Lingtian was alone, he did not dare to kill Duan Lingtian. The Saint Land Enforcement Hall's methods were beyond imagination. They might even make him swear on the lightning penalty oath to confirm if he was the one who killed Duan Lingtian. He did not dare to take the risk. However, as long as he did not perform the soul-searching secret tactic on Duan Lingtian in front of other people, with his status as a Silver Flame Elder, the Saint Land Enforcement Hall would not pursue the matter, even if they found out about it. Unfortunately, during these 3 months, Duan Lingtian had been in closed-door cultivation. For this reason, he could not find a suitable opportunity to perform the soul-searching secret tactic on Duan Lingtian. Today, Duan Lingtian was going to be sent by the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guoxiong to serve in the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine. Lian knew he would not be able to perform the soul-searching secret tactic on Duan Lingtian for the time being. Since Duan Lingtian could not do it, he planned to find a breakthrough through Gu Li and Zhu Luqi. The White Tiger Sanctum that Zhu Luqi was in was closer to the Black Turtle Sanctum, so he went to the White Tiger Sanctum first. He did not know if he was lucky or not. As soon as he arrived at the White Tiger Sanctum, he saw Zhu Luqi, who had just left the White Tiger Sanctum's altar and was returning to the residence of the White Tiger Sanctum's disciples. However, he did not see any White Tiger Sanctum's disciples around him. Whoosh! Lian's body moved like the wind. It was as though he had transformed into a bolt of lightning as he charged toward Zhu Luqi. Who's that? When the sound of wind whistling entered his ears, horror dawned on Zhu Luqi immediately. He could tell the sound of wind whistling was coming toward him. However, at this moment, horror dawned on Zhu Luqi. Before he could even react, Lian's vast and terrifying energy had already shackled him, causing him to lose his ability to move. He was completely toyed with by Lian. Following that, the scenery before Zhu Luqi's eyes kept changing. He realized he was being carried by someone and was moving at high speed. After a while, the person who was carrying him slowed down and came to a stop. He also came to a stop. Lian. Although Zhu Luqi could not see the other party's appearance clearly, it was not difficult for him to guess who the other party was. With such strength, it was obvious the other party had a motive for bringing him away from the place he was at earlier. He immediately thought of Duan Lingtian's reminder 3 months ago, and the secret tactic that Duanling Tian had taught him to defend against the soul-searching secret tactic. In the next instant, a flash appeared before Zhu Luqi's eyes as an old man appeared in front of him. He had seen this old man once when he first came to the Zoroastrianism. It was none other than Lian, the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder. As it turned out, he had guessed correctly. It's a good thing I've been circulating the secret tactic Duanling Tian taught me. When Lian performed the soul-searching secret tactic on Zhu Luqi, this was the last thought that appeared in Zhu Luqi's mind before he completely lost consciousness. Lian stood in front of Zhu Luqi and looked at Zhu Luqi, whose eyes had completely dimmed. He asked nonchalantly, "Who are you?" "Zhu Luqi." Zhu Luqi, whose eyes had lost their light, was like a walking corpse. When he heard Lian's question, he immediately answered without any hesitation. "Who's Duanling Tian?" Lian asked again. "My friend." Zhu Luqi replied. "What's his origin? Where did he come from?" When Lian asked this question, his eyes shone with excitement. This was what he wanted to know the most. As long as he could find out about Duanling Tian's origin, he would send the information to Yang Chong, the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect. Yang Chong would then go and deal with those who were related to Duanling Tian. Perhaps, if they caught Duanling Tian's relatives, they might be able to force Duanling Tian to leave the Zoroastrianism. Once Duanling Tian left the Zoroastrianism, he would be like a fish on a chopping board that they could do whatever they wanted to him. "I don't know." However, Zhu Luqi's answer caused the excited smile on Lian's face to freeze. He asked in a deep voice, "Aren't you his friend? How come you don't know his origin?" "I only met him a few days before I came to the Zoroastrianism. I don't know his origin. He didn't mention it, and I didn't ask." Zhu Luqi continued to answer Lian's question. Damn it! When Lian heard Zhu Luqi's words, his expression turned grave immediately. He knew he had been happy for nothing. Zhu Luqi did not know about Duanling Tian's origin at all. Humph! Since Lian could not get an answer from Zhu Luqi, he did not waste any more time on Zhu Luqi, and left immediately. After Lian left, Zhu Luqi's eyes regained their color. When Zhu Luqi regained his senses, he realized he was in a remote mountain forest in the White Tiger Sanctum. After a while, he regained his senses and recalled what had happened. He muttered to himself, "Lian must have used the soul-searching secret tactic on me. I hope the technique Duanling Tian taught me to resist the soul-searching secret tactic works. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have unknowingly betrayed him." Put aside Zhu Luqi's worries, Lian had also left the White Tiger Sanctum when he did not get the answer he wanted from Zhu Luqi. He had gone to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. He planned to wait for a chance to capture Gu Li and use the soul-searching secret tactic on him. At this moment, Lian was unaware that Gu Li had already left the Vermilion Bird Sanctum and the Zoroastrianism 3 months ago. Naturally, Duanling Tian was unaware of Lian's little tricks in the dark. Currently, Duanling Tian was standing next to the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder Guxiong. They were getting closer and closer to the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine. "Elder Guxiong, I heard there are many first-grade saint stones reserves in the Zoroastrianism. There's even a quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserve. Is the first mine where the quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserve is located?" Duanling Tian asked as he looked at Guxiong. "Of course not." Guxiong shook his head and said, "The quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserve is very important to the Zoroastrianism, so it's not in the Four Symbols Sanctums. Moreover, the quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserve has a great cultivation environment, even if there's no spirit gathering formation. It's hidden underground in the center of the Saint Land. Usually, it's mined by slaves, Saint Land elders and Saint Land disciples who have committed crimes and are sent there as punishment. Its existence makes the Zoroastrianism Saint Land one of the best cultivation places in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. With the help of the spirit gathering formation, it's very efficient to cultivate there." Guxiong finished his sentence in one breath. Duanling Tian finally understood. Currently, he was no stranger to quasi-celestial grade saint stones. For example, The Secundus house where the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples resided had quasi-celestial grade saint stones as the foundation of each of the 5 spirit-gathering formations. Due to this reason, it was very efficient to cultivate in the Secundus house. This advantage was not something the other forces in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land could compare to. Only the other 2 great sects in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land were as bold as the Zoroastrianism to use quasi-celestial grade saint stones on their outer disciples. Due to the existence of the spirit-gathering formation, there was no need to hold the saint stone in one's hand to cultivate. The spirit-gathering formation would extract the heaven and earth spirit energy from the saint stone for the person cultivating in the formation to sense and absorb. Other than the quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserve, the remaining first-grade saint stone reserves are all in the 4 symbols sanctums. The first mine in the 4 symbols sanctums that I'll bring you to is the largest first-grade saint stone reserve in the Zoroastrianism. Guoxiong continued to explain. With Guoxiong's introduction, Duan Lingtian had a certain understanding of the first mine in the 4 symbols sanctums. The largest first-grade saint stone reserve in the Zoroastrianism's first mine was buried in the 4 symbols sanctums first mine. It was divided into 2 areas, one big and one small. The big area was called the slave area. It was filled with lowly slaves with low innate talent that the Zoroastrianism had gathered from all over the upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land. From the moment they came to the Zoroastrianism, their fates had already been sealed. If they did not want to die, they could only obediently stay in the Zoroastrianism and mine saint stones for the Zoroastrianism for the rest of their lives. The small area was called the punishment area. Those who mined saint stones there were all disciples of the Zoroastrianism who had committed crimes in the 4 symbols sanctums. They were all punished to serve in the punishment area. The 4 symbols sanctums disciples served there for at least 3 to 5 years, while some served there for more than 100 years. Only the first mine has the punishment area. The other mines only have the slave area, Guoxiong said. Duan Lingtian nodded. With Guoxiong's in-depth introduction, he had a better understanding of the first mine in the 4 symbols sanctums. Apart from that, Duan Lingtian also knew that the first mine of the 4 symbols sanctums had 2 golden flame elders guarding it. The other mines had 1 golden flame elder guarding it as well. Of the 2 golden flame elders in the first mine of the 4 symbols sanctums, one of them was in charge of the slave area, while the other was in charge of the punishment area. The first mine of the 4 symbols sanctums is right in front. Guoxiong's voice resonated, causing Duan Lingtian to regain his senses. Chapter 1962. Duan Lingtian followed Guoxiong's gaze and saw a vast and boundless valley in front of him. There were floating islands in the sky above the valley. There were buildings on the islands that were shrouded in clouds. Due to the distance, he could not see them clearly. When he looked down, he could see people bustling about in the valley. Every once in a while he could see many people entering the mines. At the same time, many people would come out of the mines as well. After they came out, they would head to the same place. The place in front of us is the punishment zone of the first mine. The people you see are the 4 symbols sanctums disciples who have committed crimes and were sent here for service. Guoxiong said to Duan Lingtian. In the punishment zone, every 4 symbols sanctums disciple has a specific mission every day. They can only return to their residences to rest after they've completed their mission. Why are they coming in and out so frequently? Don't tell me those who have come out have already completed their tasks for the day? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. How's that possible? Guoxiong shook his head. Those who have come out are there to hand in the saint stones that they've just mined. Since they don't have spatial rings, they can only send the saint stones that they've mined to the designated location. They can only rest after they've mined enough for the day. Look, they're all carrying baskets on their backs. The saint stones that they've mined are all placed in the baskets. This is also the punishment zone's rule. The saint stones that they've mined must be placed in the baskets distributed by the punishment zone. Guoxiong added. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian began to observe carefully. he discovered that the people who were coming in and out of the punishment zone were carrying baskets on their backs. Upon closer inspection, he discovered the baskets on the backs of the people who had entered the mines were empty. As for those who came out, the baskets on their backs were full, and they were filled with holy stones. Duan Lingtian could guess why the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who served in the punishment zone did not have spatial rings. Their storage rings must have been confiscated by the punishment area when they first arrived here. If they kept the spatial rings, would anyone not be able to hide saint stones? Although he could ask them to remove the ownership of the storage ring every time, it was impractical to do this every day. He put away the storage rings and decided that using a wicker basket was the best choice. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian and Guoxiong continued to walk forward. Not far ahead of them, a figure quickly approached them. It was a middle-aged man wearing the Zoroastrianism bronze flame elder uniform. However, based on the pattern on his robe, one could tell he was a Black Turtle Sanctum's bronze flame elder. Duan Lingtian was not surprised by this. On the way here, Guoxiong had told him about the structure of the elders in the mining areas of the Four Symbols Sanctums. Other than the Golden Flame Elders and Silver Flame Elders from the Saint Land, the remaining Bronze Flame Elders were from the Four Symbols Sanctums, including the Black Turtle Sanctum. Elder Guoxiong, this Black Turtle Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder, was coincidentally in charge of patrolling the southern part of the First Mine's punishment zone. As a Black Turtle Sanctum's elder, he naturally knew Guoxiong. When he faced Guoxiong, this Black Turtle Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder was very humble and respectful. He even had to treat ordinary Silver Flame Elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum with respect, let alone this Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder. I remember you. You seem to be called Peng Hua? Guoxiong nodded at the Black Turtle Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder before he asked with uncertainty. I'm Peng Hua. I didn't expect Elder Guoxiong to remember me. Peng Hua was flattered when he heard Guoxiong's words. As an enforcement elder, Guoxiong could freely enter and leave the mining areas of the Four Symbols Sanctums. For this reason, Guoxiong and Duan Lingtian were not stopped when Peng Hua recognized Guoxiong. This young man, don't tell me he's Duan Lingtian, the new troublemaker in our Black Turtle Sanctum? Peng Hua's eyes widened when he saw Duan Lingtian and Duan Lingtian leaving. He stared at Duan Lingtian's back as though he had seen something shocking. He could not help but feel shocked. Although he was usually in the punishment zone in the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, he knew a little about what was going on outside, since there would be disciples from the Four Symbols Sanctums who made mistakes in the punishment zone every once in a while. Among them, it included the deeds of Duan Lingtian. 3 months ago, Duan Lingtian's deeds had already spread throughout the Four Symbols Sanctums. After all, he was a new disciple from the Black Turtle Sanctum, who dared to fall out with the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder. It was difficult for the people from the Four Symbols Sanctums to not pay attention to him. Naturally, Duan Lingtian's name had spread throughout the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine because of the incident 3 months ago. At that time, Duan Lingtian had killed 2 Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples. However, he was not sentenced to death. He was only punished to serve in the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine for 10 years. This matter could be said to have alarmed the entire Four Symbols Sanctums, including the various mines in the first mine. Now that I think about it, today is indeed the day Duan Lingtian came to serve in the first mine. The young man next to Elder Guoxiong must be Duan Lingtian. Soon after, Peng Hua confirmed it. However, he's just an ordinary disciple with a yellow innate spiritual root. What right does he have to be protected by Elder Guoxiong and the Saint Land's Enforcement Hall? Peng Hua could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. The news of Holy Land Bronze Flame Elder Wei, he going to the Saint Land's Enforcement Hall to sue the Black Turtle Sanctum's Enforcement Elder Guoxiong for abusing his authority for personal gain, had also spread to the first mine. Moreover, the first mine had also received the results of the Saint Land's Enforcement Hall's investigation and Wei He's death 3 days ago. Due to this reason, everyone knew Guoxiong was not the only one who was protecting Duan Lingtian. Even the Saint Land's Enforcement Hall was protecting Duan Lingtian as well. Many people knew about the incident that happened in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum 3 months ago. They also knew that if they followed the proper procedures, Duan Lingtian would definitely be executed. However, Duan Lingtian did not die, and he was even protected by the St. Lands Enforcement Hall. This made many people's imaginations run wild. However, nobody connected the fact that Duan Lingtian was protected with Duan Lingtian's innate talent. This was because the news of Duan Lingtian possessing a yellow innate spiritual root had long spread. Everyone had already assumed that Duan Lingtian's innate talent was only average. Otherwise, they would not have racked their brains to figure out how Duan Lingtian was protected by the St. Lands Enforcement Hall. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian was led by Guoxiong to the place where new disciples were registered in the first mine's punishment zone. After Guoxiong brought Duan Lingtian to the place, he bade farewell to Duan Lingtian before he left. Since he had brought Duan Lingtian here, it meant that he had completed his mission. The person in charge of the registration was a Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder. When the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder found out the person who was registering was Duan Lingtian, he could not help but shudder. A hint of dread could be seen in his eyes when he looked at Duan Lingtian. His tone was polite. He did not hate Duan Lingtian for killing 2 of his Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples 3 months ago. In his opinion, Duan Lingtian was very mysterious. Moreover, he seemed to have a powerful background. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be protected by the St. Lands Enforcement Hall with his yellow innate spiritual root. Duan Lingtian, according to the rules of the punishment zone, you'll have to hand in your spatial ring. Naturally, you don't have to remove the ownership of it. When the 10 years are up, you'll have your spatial ring back when you leave. The Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder said to Duan Lingtian in a friendly manner. At the same time, he took out a large basket and a few pieces of clothing and handed them to Duan Lingtian. This basket is used to store the saint stones when you're mining. According to the rules of the punishment zone, all the saint stones mined must be placed in the basket. The saint stones placed outside the basket are not counted and will not be included in the daily quota. The Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder explained to Duan Lingtian patiently. Duan Lingtian nodded. He had already learned about this from Elder Guoxiong, so he was not surprised. However, this wicker basket seems to be 1 size bigger than the wicker baskets that most people carry. Along the way here, I've seen very few of the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples serving in the punishment zone carrying such a large basket. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he looked at the basket in his hand. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was still unaware that there were 2 types of baskets in the punishment zone. One of them was an ordinary wicker basket, which was what most of the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples were carrying. The other type was the extra-large basket in his hand. There were less than 100 of them in the punishment zone. The volume of these baskets was twice the volume of ordinary baskets. In other words, the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples, who had such an extra-large basket, would be able to save half of the time they had to hand in their saint stones. The number of saint stones transported by such an extra-large basket was equivalent to the number of saint stones transported by ordinary baskets twice. For this reason, extra-large baskets were very popular in the punishment zone of the 4 Symbols Sanctum's first mine. If one did not have sufficient strength, one might not be able to keep it. This was also one of the trials that the 4 Symbols Sanctums of Zoroastrianism had for the disciples in the punishment zone. Only the strong were qualified to own an extra-large basket. Usually, when the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples registered here, it would depend on their luck to see if they could obtain an extra-large basket. This was because extra-large baskets were only distributed once in a while. Apart from that, the extra-large baskets in the punishment zone were often taken back by the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples who had completed their service. For this reason, the number of extra-large baskets in the punishment zone was limited to 80 to 90. However, there were more than 1,004 Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the punishment zone. Chapter 1963. It was not due to luck that Duan Lingtian obtained the extra-large wicker basket. Instead, it was a benefit that the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder had given him. Since the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Elder was not in a position to say much, Duan Lingtian, who had just arrived at the punishment zone, was unaware of this. Moreover, he did not know what this extra-large wicker basket represented in the punishment zone of the first mine. These are the uniforms of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples serving in the punishment zone. Unlike the uniforms of the ordinary Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples, all the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the punishment zone wear the same uniforms. The Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder continued to introduce the uniforms to Duan Lingtian. For this reason, unless you take the initiative to say you're a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple in the punishment zone, those who don't know you won't know you're a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple. Duan Lingtian nodded. In fact, he had already noticed this when he was on his way here. The Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples were all wearing the same uniform. Moreover, it was not the uniform of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, Vermilion Bird Sanctum, or Black Turtle Sanctum. Apart from that, there's a rule in the punishment zone that all new disciples who come to register before noon will have to mine Saint Stones in the mine on the same day. There's still about an hour before noon. When the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder reached this part of the sentence, he hesitated for a moment before he gritted his teeth and said to Duan Lingtian, "Why don't you stay here for an hour? You can leave after an hour. I've only registered your name, but I haven't registered your arrival time. As long as I push back your arrival time by an hour, you won't have to mine Saint Stones in the mine today. You can look for a place to rest and enter the mine tomorrow." It was obvious the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder was trying to help Duan Lingtian by abusing his position. It was so obvious that he was abusing his position for personal gain. Duan Lingtian could not help but feel touched. He thought to himself, there are still many good people in this world. If the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who came to register before noon and had to enter the mine on the same day heard this, they would be so angry that they would throw up blood. Because they didn't receive such treatment. Duan Lingtian did not know the reason he was given such treatment was because the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder was wary of his background. After all, in the eyes of the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder, Duan Lingtian was merely a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root. The reason he was able to obtain the protection of the Saint Lands Enforcement Hall must be due to his extraordinary background. It was precisely because of this that the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder was so polite. If it was someone else, even if they came to register a second before noon, he would still chase them away with a cold face to mine holy stones. "Thank you for your care, Elder. However, it's still early today. I want to go down to the mine to familiarize myself with the environment." Duan Lingtian thanked the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder and politely declined his offer. Since Duan Lingtian had rejected his offer, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder did not say anything else. In the end, he reminded Duan Lingtian, "You can ask the others how many holy stones you need to mine, since the number of holy stones won't be the same every day. Apart from that, you can also follow them to the place where you have to hand in the holy stones." "All right." Duan Lingtian nodded and bade farewell to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder before he left. After leaving the registration area, Duan Lingtian changed into the uniform of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples serving in the punishment zone. He carried an extra-large wicker basket on his back and blended into the crowd of people who were carrying empty wicker baskets. Duan Lingtian's addition to the crowd was particularly eye-catching due to the extra-large wicker basket on his back. Soon after, Duan Lingtian noticed many people looking at him. "Do I look that much like a newbie or a rookie?" When Duan Lingtian saw these people looking at him, he could not help but feel puzzled. Until now, he still did not realize it was the extra-large wicker basket on his back that caused this. "I don't think I've seen someone carrying an extra-large wicker basket before. Could he be a newbie?" "It's possible, but not necessarily. However, if he's a newbie, why would he have an extra-large wicker basket? According to the previous extra-large wicker basket, we'll have to wait at least 3 months before the next extra-large wicker basket is issued, right? I don't know about that. Duan Lingtian was unaware that many of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who were staring at him were communicating with each other through voice transmissions. In the end, these Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples were no longer certain that Duan Lingtian was a newbie. This was because the extra-large wicker basket had appeared at the wrong time. Perhaps this fellow who carried an extra-large wicker basket was just a nobody who carried an ordinary wicker basket in the past. Perhaps he had suddenly shown his prowess and snatched an extra-large wicker basket today. After all, there were more than 1,000 Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the punishment district. It was impossible for anyone to remember the appearance of every single Four Symbols Sanctum's disciple who carried an ordinary wicker basket. They could only barely remember the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who carried an extra-large wicker basket. They were certain that there was no such person among the 89 people who carried an extra-large wicker basket today. There were only 2 possibilities. First, this young man was a newbie who was lucky enough to obtain an extra-large wicker basket. Second, this young man was just a nobody who carried an ordinary wicker basket in the past. He had only managed to snatch an extra-large wicker basket today. Out of these 2 possibilities, the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who were staring at Duan Lingtian were more inclined towards the latter. This was because there was a pattern to the extra-large wicker basket's appearance. They had also grasped that pattern. Because of this, they were certain that this young man was not a newbie. Under normal circumstances, the extra-large wicker basket should not have appeared in the hands of a newbie at this time. However, these Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples would never have guessed that Duan Lingtian was indeed a newbie. He was a newbie who had just arrived at the First Mine's punishment district today. As for the extra-large wicker basket on his back that did not follow the pattern, it was given to him by the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder at the registration office. All of this was because he was Duan Lingtian. It was because of his name that the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder gave him an extra-large wicker basket in order to take care of him. I really hope he's just a newbie who obtained this extra-large wicker basket, because he was lucky. Many Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples stared at the extra-large wicker basket on Duan Lingtian's back. Their eyes lit up, and they were almost drooling. An extra-large wicker basket. This was an extra-large wicker basket. Once they obtained an extra-large wicker basket, it would mean they would be able to reduce the distance they had to travel to hand in Saint Stones by half. This was because the extra-large wicker basket could hold twice as many Saint Stones as an ordinary wicker basket. Since they could not figure out Duan Lingtian's background, the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who coveted the extra-large wicker basket on Duan Lingtian's back were not in a hurry to make their move. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian followed the flow of people and entered one of the mines in the punishment district. When Duan Lingtian entered the mine, a spectacular scene appeared. This mine seemed to have turned into a delicious cake in an instant. Compared to the other mines, the number of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who entered this mine was 3 times more than the other mines. Why are there so many people? Naturally, Duan Lingtian noticed there were so many people following behind him. When he turned around, he saw many greedy and burning gazes on the extra-large wicker basket on his back. For a moment he could not help but be stunned. These people, why are they looking at the wicker basket on my back? Don't tell me they want to snatch my wicker basket? Subconsciously, Duan Lingtian thought the wicker basket was a cheap item. No matter how big it would not be enough to attract the attention of the Zoroastrianism disciples from the Four Symbols Sanctums. In fact, he had forgotten the most important thing. Perhaps the wicker basket was a cheap item if it was placed outside. However, in the punishment district of the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, an extra-large wicker basket meant they would be able to reduce the distance they had to travel to hand in Saint Stones. By saving half of the wasted time, he would be able to complete his mission earlier every day. Due to this reason, Who would not want an extra-large wicker basket in the punishment district? Duan Lingtian casually picked a few people to look at. However, he discovered the wicker baskets on their backs were ordinary wicker baskets. The size of the wicker basket on his back was twice as big as the wicker basket on his back. It's just a cheap wicker basket. It shouldn't be enough for them to fight over it. I think I'm overthinking. Duan Lingtian shook his head and did not think too deeply about it. He continued to follow the crowd and walked deeper into the mine. The deeper part of the mine was the underground. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was walking through a tunnel that had been dug out that led to the underground. The deeper he went, the wider the tunnel became. Moreover, it was filled with potholes. These potholes. It seems like someone had forcefully removed something. Don't tell me. There used to be a Saint Stone mine here? Duan Lingtian could not help but speculate as he thought about it. After walking for a while, Duan Lingtian heard some noises coming from the tunnel in front of him. Boom, 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 bang, 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 wung, wung, wung. There were all kinds of noises, as though they were playing a special song. After walking deeper, Duan Lingtian arrived at the source of the noises. He discovered many Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples were already mining for Saint Stones. While they were mining for Saint Stones, they displayed various divine abilities. This was an eye-opener for Duan Lingtian. Some used their fists. Some used their swords. Some used their palms. Some used their spears. There were only things that could not be seen. There seems to be more and more Saint Stone mines. At the same time, Duan Lingtian also discovered many Saint Stone mines on both sides of the tunnel. Chapter 1964. I haven't seen any elders from the punishment zone watching us along the way. However, I'm certain they're watching us. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he glanced to his left and right before he looked forward again. He thought to himself, they must be hiding in the dark somewhere that we can't see. Even a bronze flame elder in the punishment zone was at the Saint Celestial stage or above. It was too easy for such a person to hide from the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples below the Mastery Quintessential Saint stage. This was because most of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples above the Mastery Quintessential Saint stage could enter the Saint Land and become a Saint Land disciple. For this reason, Duan Lingtian was certain the most powerful Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples, serving in the punishment zone in the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, was at the intermediate quintessential saint stage. There's no one there. Duan Lingtian suddenly realized there was no one at a Saint Stone mine nearby. His eyes lit up immediately as he walked over. When he was close to the Saint Stone mine, Duan Lingtian raised his hand and formed a sword with his fingers. Whoosh! In just an instant, a sword ray formed by the Sun Saint energy shot out from his sword fingers and slashed toward the Saint Stone mine. However, as soon as the sword landed, Duan Lingtian discovered there was only a small portion of the Saint Stone mine. The Saint Stone mine that he had his eyes on only had a small surface, and it was very thin. When he slashed it with his sword, it was completely shattered. There was not even a single first-grade Saint Stone. How's this possible? Duan Lingtian was completely dumbfounded when he saw the Saint Stone's powder that was scattered all over the ground. Initially, he thought he would be able to dig out 10 or 8 first-grade Saint Stones from the Saint Stone mine. It did not cross his mind that this was only a small portion of the Saint Stone mine. It was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Scam! What a scam! While Duan Lingtian was cursing inwardly, the eyes of many people behind him brightened. They could see something from Duan Lingtian's actions. He actually didn't discover such an obvious holy stone mine. All he needs to do is extend his divine sense, and he'll be able to discover that it's just a small Saint Stone deposit. There's no goods in it. He doesn't know how to use such a simple detection method. Newbie. He must be a newbie. It seems that the extra-large wicker basket on his back was obtained by luck. Although I don't know why the extra-large wicker basket didn't appear at the right time. But now I can be sure that he's just a newcomer. Humph. A newcomer shouldn't have an extra-large wicker basket. At the same time, The group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who had been following Duan Lingtian also communicated with their companions through voice transmissions. Based on their words, they all felt that Duan Lingtian was not qualified to possess an extra-large wicker basket. For a moment, a greedy luster appeared in their eyes. Whoosh! Just as a few of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples were about to make a move, a gust of wind blew past. One of them made a move first. With a flash, he appeared beside Duan Lingtian. When this person made his move, Duan Lingtian had already noticed him. When the person approached him, he took a few steps back unhurriedly. He looked at the middle-aged man standing in front of him calmly and asked nonchalantly, "What's the matter?" The middle-aged man standing in front of Duan Lingtian was tall and sturdy. He looked like an iron tower as he stood there. Although Duan Lingtian's height was over 1.8 meters in front of the 2-meter-tall middle-aged man, he still seemed small and weak, purely in terms of appearance. "You're a newcomer, right?" the middle-aged man asked. His voice was as loud as a bell, causing the eardrums of many people with a weaker cultivation base to vibrate. As the middle-aged man spoke, more and more people gathered around to watch the show. Moreover, some of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples, who were originally mining Saint Stones, had also stopped what they were doing and gathered around to watch the show. The Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who were banished to the first mine's punishment zone would naturally feel bored after staying in the punishment zone for a long time. For this reason, whenever a fight broke out, they would watch with interest. This was one of the few forms of entertainment they had in the punishment zone. Moreover, they did not have to pay any price to obtain visual enjoyment. "What's going on? Isn't that Niu Kong? Did someone offend Niu Kong? Huh? The young man who's fighting with Niu Kong is actually carrying an extra-large wicker basket on his back. I don't think I've seen him before. Don't tell me he's a newcomer? No. Even if he's a newcomer, it's impossible for him to have an extra-large wicker basket. The timing doesn't match. This means he must have snatched the extra-large wicker basket on his back from someone else? He's strong enough to snatch the extra-large wicker basket from one of the 89 people. His strength isn't something Niu Kong can compare to. What's Niu Kong trying to do? Is he looking for trouble?" The onlookers who did not know what was going on began to whisper among themselves. However, they soon learned about the ins and outs of the matter from some of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who were in the know. "He doesn't even know how to use his divine consciousness to investigate the Saint Stone Reserve? He chose a Saint Stone Reserve that's as thick as a fingernail to mine? Usually, only a newcomer would make such a mistake, right? He's a newcomer? If he's a newcomer, then the extra-large wicker basket on his back must have been taken for free. However, the timing doesn't seem to match. According to the past, the extra-large wicker basket shouldn't appear at this time. Let's not bother about the timing. Based on his actions, we can tell he's a newcomer. No wonder Niu Kong charged forward. As it turns out, he's after the extra-large wicker basket on the newcomer's back. This newcomer is really unlucky to have encountered Niu Kong. It's said that Niu Kong's cultivation base has already reached the peak of the exemplary saint stage not long ago. The group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples discussed among themselves. All of them felt Duan Lingtian was going to be unlucky. Moreover, he might not even be able to keep the extra-large wicker basket on his back. The peak of the exemplary saint stage? When Duan Lingtian heard the discussions in the surroundings, especially when he heard that the tall middle-aged man's cultivation base was only at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, he almost laughed out loud. A Four Symbols Sanctum's disciple, at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, actually wanted to snatch his things? Did he really think Duan Lingtian was made of paper? However, at the same time, Duan Lingtian was also surprised. He did not expect someone would really want to snatch the wicker basket on his back. Was it necessary? Wasn't it just a lousy wicker basket? Until now, Duan Lingtian still did not know how rare and precious the extra-large wicker basket on his back was in the punishment zone. He thought everyone would choose their own wicker basket. It did not cross his mind that not everyone had an extra-large wicker basket. Naturally, Duan Lingtian's thoughts did not last long. As the discussions in the surroundings grew louder, Duan Lingtian learned something from the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples around him. As it turned out, before he came to the punishment zone in the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, there were only 89 extra-large wicker baskets like the one on his back. The 89 extra-large wicker baskets were all in the hands of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples, who were at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, or the quintessential saint stage or above. Apart from that, although the newcomers who came to the punishment zone would be able to obtain an extra-large wicker basket, there was a time limit. It all depended on luck. Based on the time it took for a newcomer to obtain an extra-large wicker basket, by right, it would not be Duan Lingtian's turn to obtain the extra-large wicker basket. That Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder used his authority to obtain this extra-large wicker basket for me? At this moment, Duan Lingtian also realized this. He could not help but smile wryly. Did the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder look down on him? Did he think he would not be able to obtain an extra-large wicker basket with his own strength? However, even though he was grumbling inwardly, he still owed the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder a favor. If he had the chance in the future, he would definitely return the favor. Are you deaf? I'm asking you a question. Are you new here? Duan Lingtian finally regained his senses when he heard Niu Kong's thunderous voice. When he regained his senses, he noticed Niu Kong was glaring at him with an unfriendly expression. So what if I'm new here? Duan Lingtian asked nonchalantly. Put aside the fact that Niu Kong was only at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. Even if Niu Kong was at the peak of the quintessential saint stage, he was not qualified to make Duan Lingtian cower. Good. Very good. Boy, you're very courageous. Initially, I thought I wouldn't touch you as long as you obediently hand over the extra-large wicker basket you're carrying. Niu Kong's gaze turned cold as he looked at Duan Lingtian. However, I've changed my mind. Whether you're willing to hand over the extra-large wicker basket obediently or not, I'll still teach you a good lesson. I'll let you know that in the first mine's punishment zone, newcomers have to respect the seniors. Niu Kong's words were filled with anger. As soon as his words left his mouth, a majestic aura surged out of his body. It was the aura of the Sun Saint energy that he had mobilized. Niu Kong is angry. This newcomer is really valiant. He actually dares to provoke Niu Kong. It seems like he's in for a bad time. Niu Kong has always been hot-tempered. I'm afraid this won't end well for him since he's angered Niu Kong. I only hope Niu Kong will go easy on him. Otherwise, I'm afraid this newcomer will have to lie in bed for some time. The Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples discussed among themselves as they looked at Duan Lingtian pitifully. Niu Kong, is it? Under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Lingtian took a step forward and looked at the enraged Niu Kong coldly. I'll give you a chance. Get out of my sight within the span of 3 breaths. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. Although Duan Lingtian's voice was not loud, it still drowned out the discussion in the surroundings. Everyone present on the scene could hear his words clearly. The entire place fell silent immediately. Chapter 1965. You want me to get out of your sight in 3 breaths? When Niu Kong heard Duan Lingtian's threat, he was stunned just like the other Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples. When he regained his senses, he looked at Duan Lingtian, as though he had just seen a ghost. At this moment, he even thought he had heard wrongly. Therefore, he had to confirm it. Whoosh! At the same time, the other Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples regained their senses as well. There was an uproar as they looked at Duan Lingtian, as though they had just seen a ghost. Did I hear wrongly? This new disciple is threatening senior brother Niu Kong? He wants Niu Kong to get out of his sight? Is he crazy? When the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples regained their senses, they began to discuss among themselves. All of them felt this new disciple was too arrogant. In the punishment zone of the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, anyone who dared to be arrogant would not have an easy time unless they were strong enough. No matter how they looked at it, they did not think this new disciple was strong at all. At the very least, they did not think this new disciple was stronger than Niu Kong. When Niu Kang heard the discussion among the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples, he immediately realized he had not heard wrongly. This new disciple was indeed threatening him. "Brat, you're seeking death." Niu Kang was instantly enraged. His eyes were burning with rage as the saint energy in his body surged. It was as though a raging dragon was about to burst out at any moment. "I've given you a chance." At the same time, Duan Ling Tian's voice resonated in the air again. In the end, his voice suddenly turned cold. 3 breaths have passed. Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as Duan Ling Tian finished speaking, the Sun Saint energy that had been accumulating for a long time shot out from his back and transformed into a pair of flaming wings. It was a shocking sight. In the next moment, the wings suddenly flapped. Boom! 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 All of a sudden, a series of thunderous explosions reverberated in the air. It was the golden crow's wings on Duan Ling Tian's back that caused an exaggerated commotion. Such a commotion naturally shocked many of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Duan Ling Tian, who had cast the high-grade movement divine ability, the golden crow's wings, charged toward Niu Kang at a ridiculously fast speed, as though he had transformed into a cannonball that had left the barrel. Not good. As soon as Duan Ling Tian cast his movement divine ability and charged toward Niu Kang finally regained his senses. His heart jolted as horror dawned on his face. Now he finally realized it. The reason why this new disciple in front of him dared to be so arrogant in front of him was because he really had the strength, and not because he was overestimating himself. Due to the fact that the saint energy in his body was ready to be unleashed, Niu Kang instantly mobilized his saint energy and cast his movement martial tactic in an attempt to dodge Duan Ling Tian, who was charging toward him. Although Niu Kang's cultivation base had already broken through to the peak of the exemplary saint stage, he had yet to master any movement divine ability above the intermediate level. It made sense when one thought about it. If he had mastered a movement divine ability above the intermediate level, with his cultivation base at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, it would be easy for him to obtain an extra-large wicker basket in the punishment zone. There was no need for him to snatch a new disciple like Duan Ling Tian. "Your speed is too slow." Duan Ling Tian's indifferent words caused Niu Kang's heart to jolt. In the next moment, just as Niu Kang was about to dodge, the golden crow's wings on Duan Ling Tian's back flapped violently again. His speed instantly increased to another level. In just a blink of an eye, Duan Ling Tian had already arrived next to Niu Kang. Boom! The casual palm strike contained a vast amount of Sun Saint energy. As the golden radiance shone brightly, it enveloped Niu Kang. Although Niu Kang had cast a defensive martial tactic in a hurry, he was not fully prepared. Due to this reason, there were many flaws in his defense. It was easily crushed by the Sun Saint energy on Duan Ling Tian's palm. Bang! A loud noise resonated in the air as Niu Kang's body trembled before he was sent flying backward. He crashed hard on the ground, but his momentum did not diminish at all. When Niu Kang was sent flying by Duan Ling Tian's palm strike, he continued to spit out blood. Blood stained the ground. It was a ghastly sight. The Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples' expressions changed drastically when they saw this. They could not help but inwardly gasp. Niu Kang, a martial cultivator at the peak of the exemplary saint stage, was completely powerless in front of this new disciple. In just one blow, he was severely injured. "I'll give you a chance. Get out of my sight in the span of 3 breaths. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." The new disciple's threatening words to Niu Kang reverberated in the ears of many Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples. Although they had said the same thing, their reactions were completely different. Before the conflict began, all of them felt this new disciple was too arrogant and overestimating his own strength. However, now that they saw this new disciple severely injuring Niu Kang in just one blow, they realized this new disciple was not overestimating his own strength. He was truly powerful. Which sanctum of the Four Symbols Sanctums did he commit a mistake and was banished to the First Mind's punishment zone? When the group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples shifted their attention to Duan Ling Tian again, they could not help but feel puzzled. Based on this new disciple's strength, he was definitely at the quintessential saint stage. Quintessential saint stage disciples were not nameless people in the Four Symbols sanctums. However, although the Four Symbols sanctums disciples were from different sanctums, they looked at each other. None of them knew this new disciple. Don't tell me he's a new disciple who committed a mistake and was banished to the first mine not long after he joined Zoroastrianism? Many of the Four Symbols sanctums disciples began to speculate. How dare you try to snatch my belongings with such strength? Duan Lingtian glanced coldly at Niu Kong, who was lying in the dark. Horror dawned on Niu Kong's face as he apologized profusely. Niu Kong failed to recognize Mount Tai earlier. Please forgive me, senior brother. He apologized because he was worried Duan Lingtian would attack him again. Although Zoroastrianism did not allow fellow disciples to kill each other, as long as one did not injure or kill one's fellow disciples, it would not be a problem since it did not violate the rules of Zoroastrianism. Didn't you say you're going to teach me a lesson? Duan Lingtian asked nonchalantly when he saw Niu Kong had admitted defeat. The anger on his face had subsided a lot. I dare not. I dare not. Niu Kong quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at Duan Lingtian anymore. He was afraid Duan Lingtian would attack him again in a fit of anger. Humph! Duan Lingtian snorted coldly, and no longer bothered with Niu Kong. He continued to walk deeper into the tunnel. After learning about the significance of the extra-large wicker basket in the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine's punishment zone, Duan Lingtian felt it was understandable that Niu Kong wanted to snatch his extra-large wicker basket. However, Niu Kong was unlucky because he was not as strong as Duan Lingtian. Otherwise, his extra-large wicker basket would have already been in Niu Kong's possession. After all, Niu Kong only wanted to snatch his extra-large wicker basket from the beginning until the end. He did not intend to kill him at all. Snatching wicker baskets was a very common thing in the punishment zone. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian did not continue to argue with Niu Kong. Earlier, when Duan Lingtian was still around, the group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples did not even dare to breathe loudly. However, when they saw Duan Lingtian's silhouette gradually disappearing, they heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, they could not help but discuss among themselves. Who's he? There's no doubt he's a quintessential saint stage powerhouse. I'm a White Tiger Sanctum's disciple, but before I was banished to the first mine, I've never heard of such a person in our White Tiger Sanctum. I'm a Azure Dragon Sanctum's disciple, but I've never heard of such a person in our Azure Dragon Sanctum as well. I'm from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, but I've never heard of such a quintessential saint stage disciple in our Vermilion Bird Sanctum either. I'm from the Black Turtle Sanctum. Just like all of you, I don't recognize him. The group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples discussed among themselves. Based on their words, it was obvious they were curious about Duan Lingtian's identity. That pair of flaming wings that appeared behind his back just now should be an extremely powerful movement divine ability. Soon after, a Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples' attention shifted to the high-grade movement divine ability, the Golden Crow's wings, that Duan Lingtian had cast earlier. His voice was filled with shock. I've never seen such a movement divine ability before. I've never heard of it before. However, it feels like it's in no way inferior to our Vermilion Bird Sanctum's most treasured movement divine ability. Moreover, its visual effect is much stronger than our Vermilion Bird Sanctum's most treasured movement divine ability. That's right. The movement divine ability he cast is too powerful. That pair of powerful wings seemed as though they really grew out of his body. It doesn't look out of place at all. I feel the same way as well. The group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples was shocked by the movement divine ability that Duan Lingtian had cast earlier. I remember now. All of a sudden, a sharp voice resonated in the air. It drowned out everyone's discussion and attracted everyone's attention. The person who spoke was a skinny Four Symbols Sanctum's disciple. He looked like a thief. His small eyes kept darting around. One could tell he was up to no good with just a glance. Don't tell me all of you have forgotten? When the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciple saw everyone looking at him, he said excitedly, "There's a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple who's going to be banished to the first mine's punishment zone. Weren't we all talking about him earlier? Also, among the 3 high-grade movement divine abilities that Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple mastered, isn't there a high-grade movement divine ability that has wings on his back? Upon hearing the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples' words, the group of 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples narrowed their eyes. Gasp! 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 Immediately after, the sound of people inhaling cold air swept through the underground mine tunnel, and the sound of people landing on the ground could be heard. Chapter 1966. After the sound of people gasping gradually died down, the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples present on the scene, including Niu Kong, looked at each other. They could see the same answer in each other's eyes. Everyone, please search for the complete answer. Damn. Duan Lingtian. In the next instant, many 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples cried out in surprise. Their expressions were interesting. How could I have forgotten about him? 3 months ago, one of the 2 Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples he killed was said to be at the early quintessential saint stage. Even if his strength is not at the intermediate quintessential saint stage, it's definitely close to the intermediate quintessential saint stage. Rumor has it that he only has a yellow innate spiritual root. Logically speaking, an ordinary disciple with a yellow innate spiritual root might not even be able to break through to the quintessential saint stage. However, he managed to kill an early quintessential saint stage Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple. I heard his cultivation base has yet to break through to the quintessential saint stage. The reason he's so strong is because of the 3 high-grade divine abilities he has mastered. Put aside his innate spiritual root, just his innate talent in mastering divine abilities is unrivaled in Zoroastrianism. After all, those are 3 high-grade divine abilities. In Zoroastrianism, even Lord Sect Leader has only mastered 3 high-grade divine abilities. The most surprising thing is he killed the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples for no reason. But the Saint Land Enforcement Hall still protected him. Moreover, there was even a Saint Land Bronze Flame Elder with a blue innate spiritual root who went to the Saint Land Enforcement Hall to make a fuss about him killing the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciples. In the end, he was sentenced to death as well. I'm sure Duan Lingtian's innate talent in martial Dao might be ordinary, but his innate talent in divine abilities is extraordinary. Of course, the most extraordinary thing about him is his mysterious and unpredictable background. You're right. If it's not for his extraordinary background, why would the Saint Land Enforcement Hall protect him? After learning the new disciple was Duan Lingtian, the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples discussed among themselves. They were no longer surprised by his strength. After all, they had heard of Duan Lingtian's strength before. So he is Duan Lingtian. A bitter smile appeared on Niu Kong's face. If he had known that this person was Duan Lingtian, he would not have dared to snatch the extra-large wicker basket from him, even if he was given 100 guts. At the same time, many 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples looked at Niu Kong with pity in their eyes. Although Niu Kong's strength was not bad, it could not be compared to Duan Lingtian. At this moment, Duan Lingtian was unaware that the 4 Symbols Sanctum's disciples had already guessed his identity. Continuing deeper into the mine, Duan Lingtian continued mining. With his current strength, the entire mining process was very smooth. Not long after, the extra-large basket on his back was filled to the brim with first-grade saint stones. These saint stone ores were of different sizes. They had not been polished and were very rough. I actually didn't encounter a quasi-celestial grade holy stone. Duan Lingtian was a little disappointed that he didn't find any quasi-immortal grade saint stones after digging up a basket full of first-grade saint stones. Now that the basket is full, it's time to hand in these saint stones. I wonder how many baskets of first-grade saint stones I'll need to fill up for today's mission? Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he thought to himself. In fact, it would not take long for Duan Lingtian to fill up a basket full of first-grade saint stones. It was precisely because he had secretly sent many first-grade saint stones into the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda that he had wasted some time. Naturally, he did not waste much time. If Duan Lingtian was not worried that he would be discovered if he hid too many first-grade saint stones, he would not have stopped until now. I'll continue mining next time. For now, I'll stop for now. With this thought in mind, Duan Lingtian carried the extra-large basket full of first-grade saint stones and returned the way he came. Along the way, he became the center of attention. It's Duan Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian heard the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples exclaiming, he realized he had been recognized. I can't believe I'm recognized so quickly. Duan Lingtian shook his head inwardly. Meanwhile, along the way, Duan Lingtian discovered the people who were tailing him had disappeared. He did not find this strange. At this moment, he finally understood why there were so many people following him when he entered the mine. As it turned out, they had their eyes on the extra-large basket on his back. However, after he had revealed his strength and revealed his identity, those people no longer dared to covet the extra-large basket on his back. What a joke! In the punishment zone of the Four Symbols Sanctum's first mine, including the extra-large basket on Duan Lingtian's back, there were a total of 90 extra-large baskets. However, there were only 50 to 60 people at the quintessential saint stage, or above in the punishment zone. In other words, there were many elites at the peak of the exemplary saint stage who possessed extra-large baskets as well. Unless there was something wrong with their heads, the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the punishment zone would rather snatch the extra-large baskets from those powerhouses at the peak of the exemplary saint stage instead of coveting the extra-large basket in Duan Lingtian's hand. Duan Lingtian was a powerful person who could even kill an early quintessential saint stage martial cultivator. His strength was comparable to an intermediate quintessential saint stage powerhouse. Senior brother, do you know how many saint stones we have to mine today to complete the mission? When Duan Lingtian was about to leave the mine, he noticed many Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples were still walking out. He walked up to a middle-aged man who was walking out and asked politely, "Senior brother Duan Lingtian, you can just call me junior brother. I don't dare to be called senior brother in front of you." When the middle-aged man saw Duan Lingtian appearing in front of him, he was already anxious. When he heard Duan Lingtian calling him senior brother, he looked like a mouse that had just encountered a cat. He was also present when Duan Lingtian injured Niu Kong with just a blow. Due to this reason, he knew the person before him was Duan Lingtian, the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple who had just been banished to the punishment zone of the first mine. He was only an intermediate exemplary saint stage martial cultivator, so it was only natural that he was anxious when he saw Duan Lingtian. Based on the extra-large basket you're carrying, senior brother Duan Lingtian, you'll only need 6 baskets to complete the mission today. Although the middle-aged man was anxious, he did not dare to slack off when faced with Duan Lingtian's question. Thank you. When Duan Lingtian saw the middle-aged man was so afraid of him, he merely shook his head and did not say anything else after he thanked him. Whoosh! In the next instant, Duan Lingtian's body moved, and his speed increased a lot. Soon after, he left the mine. 6 baskets. Based on the speed I mined the first-grade saint stones earlier, I'll only need 15 minutes to fill up a basket of first-grade saint stones. However, I'll need another 15 minutes to throw the first-grade saint stones into the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Let's just say it'll take half an hour. 6 baskets. I'll need 3 hours, including the time needed to transport the saint stones. It won't take more than 4 hours. After leaving the mine, Duan Lingtian calculated in his heart. At the same time, he followed the crowd and made his way to the place where he had to hand in the saint stones. With the extra-large saint stones on his back, Duan Lingtian was destined to be the center of attention. Along the way, he attracted the attention of many Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples. These gazes were filled with envy, jealousy and greed. When some of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples saw Duan Lingtian, they suspected he was a newcomer. At the same time, they also had designs on the extra-large basket on Duan Lingtian's back. However, when these Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples learned about Duan Lingtian's identity, From some of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples who knew about Duan Lingtian's identity, horror dawned on them immediately. At the same time, they suppressed the greed in their hearts. What a joke! This was Duan Lingtian, a powerhouse who had killed an early quintessential Saint Stage Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple. If they tried to snatch his basket, they would be digging their own graves. When Duan Lingtian arrived at the place where the Saint Stone ores were to be handed over, one of the White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elders, who was in charge of collecting Saint Stone ores, was also attracted by Duan Lingtian. An extra-large wicker basket? This person looks unfamiliar. Duan Lingtian. However, when he was registering Duan Lingtian, the White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder learned about Duan Lingtian's name. Since he was Duan Lingtian, it was not strange for him to have an extra-large basket. After all, Duan Lingtian's strength was obvious. Similar to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder, the White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder was very polite to Duan Lingtian after learning about his identity. Duan Lingtian, you can just deliver this basket of Saint Stones today. You've just arrived at the first mine, so it's better for you to rest first. Based on the White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder's words, it seemed like he intended to help Duan Lingtian. There's no need for that. Upon hearing the White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder's words, Duan Lingtian immediately became anxious and rejected the Bronze Flame Elder's suggestion. What a joke! He still wanted to stay in the mine a little longer, because the longer he stayed, the more first-grade holy stone ores he could send into the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Although a first-grade Saint Stone mine was not of much use to him, who practiced Zoroastrianism, however, he did not hide the first-grade Saint Stone mine for himself. Instead, he hid it for his family and friends. To the Azure Cloud Mansion that was located in the Debussy Subterranean, a large amount of first-grade Saint Stones was definitely a huge fortune. It could even raise the overall strength of the Azure Cloud Mansion by more than one level. Although the White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame Elder did not know why Duan Lingtian rejected his good intentions, he did not say anything since Duan Lingtian insisted. After spending another 3 hours, Duan Lingtian successfully completed his mission for the day. Next, it's time for me to look for a place to stay. It's said that the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples' residence in the punishment zone, in the first mine of the Four Symbols Sanctums, has a cultivation environment that's similar to the Primus houses in the Four Symbols Sanctums. I, Duan Lingtian, want that mansion. His eyes gleamed as he made up his mind. Chapter 1967. The residence of the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the punishment zone of the first mine of the Four Symbols Sanctums had many cultivation residences. Similar to the sanctums of the Four Symbols Sanctums, they were divided into Primus houses, second houses, third houses, and fourth houses. They were arranged in the shape of a four-tiered pyramid. However, since there were not many Four Symbols Sanctums disciples in the punishment zone of the first mine of the Four Symbols Sanctums, there were not many cultivation residences. For example, each of the Four Symbols Sanctums disciples had 10 Primus houses, but there was only one here. There were only 10 second houses. There were only 100 third houses. There were more fourth houses. There were a total of 2,000 fourth houses. When Duan Lingtian arrived at the residence of the Four Symbols Sanctums disciples in the punishment zone of the first mine of the Four Symbols Sanctums disciples, he immediately fixed his gaze on the floating island at the highest point. The floating island was suspended at the highest point. It was like a moon surrounded by stars. It was like a crane among chickens. It was extremely eye-catching. He's not here. Duan Lingtian, who was hovering near the Primus house, where the Four Symbols Sanctums disciples stayed in the punishment zone, extended his divine consciousness. He discovered the Primus house was empty. It seems like the person staying in the Primus house hasn't returned yet, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. At the same time, Duan Lingtian decided to wait here for the owner of the Primus house to return. Since he's able to stay in the Primus house, he must be one of the most outstanding disciples among the Four Symbols Sanctums disciples in the first mine of the punishment zone. In fact, he can be said to be the strongest among the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the first mine of the punishment zone. Although Duan Lingtian knew his opponent was powerful, he was not afraid at all. Currently, his cultivation base had already reached the peak of the Divine Saint stage. Just his Sun Saint energy alone was comparable to the Saint energy of an ordinary powerhouse, at the peak of the Exemplary Saint stage. For this reason, with the help of his divine ability, the Golden Crow's wings, he was able to toy with Niu Kong, whose cultivation base had just broken through to the peak of the Exemplary Saint stage. With just a single blow, he had severely injured Niu Kong. In terms of Saint energy alone, he was not inferior to Niu Kong. Naturally, it was easy for him to defeat Niu Kong. Of course, defeating Niu Kong did not give Duan Lingtian any sense of accomplishment. It was to the extent that even if he defeated the current owner of the Primus house, Duan Lingtian would not feel much of a sense of accomplishment. When Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was at the intermediate Divine Saint stage, he could easily kill an ordinary early quintessential Saint stage martial cultivator with the various divine abilities he had mastered. His strength was comparable to an intermediate quintessential Saint stage martial cultivator. Currently, his cultivation base had made 2 consecutive breakthroughs and had broken through to the peak of the Divine Saint stage. In other words, his current strength was so strong that it surpassed most mastery quintessential Saint stage martial cultivators. It was almost comparable to a martial cultivator at the peak of the quintessential Saint stage. Naturally, the prerequisite for him to be able to overpower a mastery quintessential Saint stage martial cultivator was that his opponent did not master any powerful divine abilities, especially high-grade divine abilities. Otherwise, there would be too many uncertainties. Even Duan Lingtian would not dare to say he would win easily. Isn't that Duan Lingtian? Why is he standing outside the Primus house? Soon after, 2 Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples returned from their mission. When they saw Duan Lingtian standing outside the Primus house with an extra-large wicker basket on his back, they could not help but be stunned. Echi, don't tell me he's going to challenge senior brother Sunda in the Primus house? Soon after, one of them regained his senses. His eyes widened as he asked in disbelief. That's possible. The other person nodded. He's crazy. He's really crazy. Does he think the early quintessential Saint stage Vermilion Bird Sanctum's disciple whom he killed can compare to senior brother Sunda? Senior brother Sunda is someone who has half a foot in the mastery quintessential Saint stage. He could break through to the mastery quintessential Saint stage at any time. That's right. Once senior brother Sunda breaks through to the mastery quintessential Saint stage, he'll have a chance to become a Saint Land disciple. On the day he becomes a Saint Land disciple, he'll be exempted from his previous punishment and leave the first mine. The 2 Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples spoke highly of the owner of the Primus house, a Four Symbols Sanctum's disciple called Sunda. Based on their words, they did not think Duan Lingtian was a match for Sunda. However, when they saw Duan Lingtian standing in the air outside the Primus house with his eyes closed as he waited for Sunda's return, they did not return to their own residences in a hurry. Instead, they accompanied Duan Lingtian as they waited for Sunda's return. As time passed by, more and more Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples returned. When they saw Duan Lingtian's intention of seizing the Primus house, none of them were in a hurry to return to their own residences. Instead, they waited for Sunda's return with great interest. This Duan Lingtian actually wants to challenge senior brother Sunda? Senior brother Sunda is the strongest powerhouse among the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples in the first mine's punishment zone. He's someone who has half a foot in the mastery quintessential Saint stage. That's not all. Senior brother Sunda has even mastered 2 medium-grade divine abilities. It's said that he has already comprehended most of the Black Turtle Sanctum's most treasured divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. Before he was banished to the first mine, he's widely acknowledged as one of the Black Turtle Sanctum's most treasured divine ability, the Black Turtle's Barrier. Senior brother Sunda is a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple, and Duan Lingtian is also a Black Turtle Sanctum's disciple. This is going to be interesting. More and more Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples gathered to watch. Their whispers were heard by Duan Lingtian. Someone who has half a foot in the Mastery Quintessential Saint stage? One of the Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples who has the highest chance of comprehending the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier. The former did not make Duan Lingtian feel pressured at all. However, the latter caused ripples in Duan Lingtian's heart. If Sunda really manages to comprehend the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, it'll be a good thing for me. In the past, Duan Lingtian was eager to witness someone casting the Black Turtle Sanctum's most treasured divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, with his own eyes. This was because he discovered that he could only cast a divine ability. Only by witnessing someone perform a divine ability with his own eyes would he be able to successfully comprehend the divine ability in a short period of time with the Sovereign Heart Sword, which had been tempered thousands of times. Senior brother Sunda is back. Duan Lingtian only opened his eyes when someone exclaimed in surprise. He saw the Four Symbols Sanctum's disciple Sunda flying toward him under everyone's watchful eyes. Sunda was a middle-aged man. He looked inconspicuous, but he gave off a simple and unadorned feeling. No matter how noisy the surroundings were, his expression did not change at all. From the beginning until the end, he had a solemn expression, as though someone owed him money. "You want to challenge me?" Sunda asked calmly when he arrived near Duan Lingtian. He looked at Duan Lingtian, who had turned around. "Please enlighten me, senior brother Sunda." Duan Lingtian nodded. "Make your move." Sunda was very straightforward. As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic aura surged out of his body. It was the aura of the majestic saint energy that he had mobilized in his body. As soon as the saint energy appeared on the surface of his body, it caused ripples to form in the air around him. The aura of an intermediate quintessential saint stage powerhouse swept out in all directions. Elementary devouring tactic. Duan Lingtian's heart jolted. The sun saint energy in his body instantly extended out through his 99 saint veins as he cast his high-grade assist-type divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. In just a blink of an eye, a whirlpool that was clearly visible appeared with his body as the center. As the whirlpool twisted and spun rapidly, a powerful suction force appeared. In just a few moments, it devoured all the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings. It's Duan Lingtian's high-grade assist-type divine ability. What a terrifying assist-type divine ability! In just a blink of an eye, I feel like all the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings is being devoured by him. I can't even sense how much heaven and earth spirit energy there is in the surroundings. His saint energy is constantly increasing. As Duan Lingtian cast the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, the group of Four Symbols Sanctum's disciples' attention was attracted by the whirlpool that overlapped with his body. Although they had heard that Duan Lingtian had mastered a powerful high-grade assist-type divine ability, they could not help but feel shocked when they witnessed it with their own eyes. At this moment, as Duan Lingtian cast this high-grade assist-type divine ability, they could clearly sense that Duan Lingtian's saint energy was constantly increasing. As it turned out, Duan Lingtian's sun saint energy was only comparable to the saint energy at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. After that, Duan Lingtian's sun saint energy continued to increase. First, it gradually increased to the saint energy at the early quintessential saint stage. Then it successfully increased to the saint energy at the intermediate quintessential saint stage. Since then, Duan Lingtian's sun saint energy did not continue to increase. Even so, Duan Lingtian's sun saint energy had already increased to the point where it was comparable to Sunda's saint energy. Both of their saint energies were at the intermediate quintessential saint stage. Naturally, unlike Sunda, Duan Lingtian's saint energy was only increased by the assist-type divine ability. It would not last for long. Previously, when Duan Lingtian defeated Niu Kong, I was there as well. However, I didn't notice if Duan Lingtian had cast any assist-type divine ability. Now, it seems like Duan Lingtian did not cast any assist-type divine ability during his battle with Niu Kong. Currently, Duan Lingtian, who has cast his assist-type divine ability, has actually increased his saint energy to the intermediate quintessential saint stage in such a short period of time. In fact, when he had increased his saint energy to the peak of the exemplary saint stage, he was able to kill an early quintessential saint stage disciple in the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. Currently, I'm afraid it won't be difficult for him to defeat senior brother Sunda. Heavens! Duan Lingtian's strength has actually increased to such a level in just 3 months. Is he really just a mediocre person with a yellow innate spiritual root? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.